Chapter 160. This voice seemed to have some kind of temptation, making people involuntarily want to listen to this voice. Feng Wu's eyes slightly darkened. Intuitively she didn't like this voice, but Ajur's eyes flashed with a trace of confusion, and then he actually lifted one foot, intending to walk into the palace. Feng Wu at this time pulled Ajur's hand. Although she didn't know why she did this, intuition told her that this was the time to do it. If not, Ajur would be in danger. Being pulled by Feng Wu like this, Ajur immediately came back to his senses. He vaguely thought of what he wanted to do, and immediately he was startled and broke out in a cold sweat. Damn it. I almost capsized in the gutter. Thinking that as an inheritor of the divine seal, he actually almost fell into someone else's trap, and even needed Feng Wu to save him, this made him feel bad all over. Obviously, he still wanted to protect Feng Wu, but he didn't expect that in the end. It was Feng Wu who saved him. Why did this feeling feel so good? Who are you? Ming Shi's eyes were also clear. He and Feng Wu were not affected by the voice. His eyes were very calm. This god is the acquired god, Kaven. The voice said again. No, you're not. This kind of trick to confuse people's minds is not a god's method. Only a devil would use this kind of method. Ming Shi's tone was very sure. There was not a trace of hesitation in his voice, as if he had already confirmed his guess. Ajur and Feng Wu were not surprised after hearing Ming Shi's words. Feng Wu didn't have any special concept of gods and devils, so she didn't need to care about what she thought. As for Ajur, because he had the divine seal of the upper realm, he was very sensitive to devil aura. Almost at the moment when he entered this place, he had already felt a faint devil aura in the air. This was not an ordinary devil aura. Even in the devil race, it was certainly the level of a superior devil. Even if Ajur himself had inherited the seal of summer of the four great divine seals, he still had many things to learn. He simply didn't have the strength to challenge a superior devil. And he had a certain guess of Ming Shi's strength. Maybe he had the strength to challenge a superior devil, but in this place, Ming Shi's strength was limited. It was impossible to use 100% of his strength. This was really going to be an ancient war. Wakakakaka. I didn't think that someone could discover this god's identity. Unfortunately, what can you do to come to this third level? You think you can still walk out? You are really naive and stupid. The voice of the one who called himself Kaven had changed. It had changed from a divine voice filled with a holy aura to a sinister and seductive divine voice. It is indeed a demonic creature, Ming Shi said faintly. Didn't you already guessed it? The voice seemed to have a trace of a question. I have several guesses. What I said was only the most likely one. To make it clear, he was just testing the other party just now. He didn't think that this so-called god of heaven Kaven would be so easily tested. He only said a few words, and he admitted it himself. In fact, Ming Shi wasn't sure whether the other party was a devil or not. After discovering the abnormality of this place, Ming Shi had two guesses. First, the master of this place was really god of heaven Kaven. It was just that the trace of consciousness left by Kaven was slowly contaminated by devil aura. This was why this place was contaminated with devil aura. The other guess was that there was no so-called god of heaven Kaven in this place. All of this was a trap set by the devil race in order to lure some magicians and swordmasters into this place, foolishly fooling around. From the looks of it, it should be the second type. This demon should really be a superior demon that had survived the ancient war. It was just that in that war, he had been seriously injured. Moreover, it was the kind of injury that left him with one last breath. In order to preserve his life, he had been sleeping here for tens of thousands of years. Because of the arrival of these people, this demon was awakened. What Ming Shi didn't know was that although his guess was mostly correct, there was still a part of the content that he didn't guess. At this moment, he didn't know these. He was secretly on guard against this devil who was hiding somewhere. Hateful little thing, you actually dare to provoke this god. The voice seemed to be angry, the voice carrying obvious killing intent, but after a few breaths, he returned to normal. Forget it, this god is too lazy to bother with you little devils. Let me tell you, if you want to leave, come in and kill this god. As long as this god doesn't die, no one can leave this space, little guys. Come quickly, don't make this god wait too long, kaka. After a burst of wild laughter, the voice completely disappeared from this space. What should we do? Ajur looked at Ming Shi. This was the time for the senior to play a role, and only at this time would this guy remember that Ming Shi and the others had the identity of his senior. Go in, why don't we go in? since he wants us to go in so much, then how can we let him down? Ming Shi smiled. His smile was as bright as a spring flower, and even a faint fragrance of flowers could be smelled. Feng Wu looked at Ming Shi with sparkling eyes, once again thinking that Ming Shi was really like her master. Her master had said that in the future, if she wanted to find a husband like her master, she would find a husband like her master. She was very obedient, so she must marry Ming Shi, who was very similar to her master. The next time she saw her master would definitely praise her for her eyesight when she saw Ming Shi. Thinking of this, Feng Wu's eyes curved. The little girl was in a very good mood, not at all troubled by the danger she was in. After Ming Shi decided to go in, the three of them walked side by side. Feng Wu was still protected in the middle. The door was originally ajar, and the three of them entered through the door in succession. The palace was very big, but there was a hint of blood red. The few people who came in before them were standing in front of an old man. That old man looked to be in his twilight years. He was sitting in the innermost part of the hall. In front of him was an inheritance crystal. The inheritance crystal was a commonly used inheritance test on the continent. There were 3 methods of inheritance on the continent. The first was bloodline inheritance. When the bloodline awakened, the brain would automatically inherit all the knowledge that should be learned. Another method was to use the inheritance crystal. The inheritance crystal was a one-time use item. The inheritance within the crystal could only be obtained by one person. When the energy within the crystal was exhausted, the crystal would disappear. The last method of inheritance was of course the inheritance of words and pictures. The knowledge that one wanted to pass on was recorded in words or pictures on a kind of magic paper. That magic paper, even after 10,000 years, would not decay. In the clans and the various big academies, the things that were passed on would be recorded on magic paper. Only the strong who were alone would use the inheritance crystal to pass on. The 7 people in the palace all stared at the inheritance crystal in front of the old man with fiery eyes. That was the inheritance of a god. Once they received the inheritance, there was hope for them to become a god. Chapter 161. The few people who were already mesmerized by the inheritance crystal didn't know that they had fallen into the devil's trap. They were all looking at the crystal with red eyes and thinking about how to beat the others to obtain the final inheritance. Among the 7 people, only Irene thought a little more. Irene had read the original work, and this old man didn't appear in the original work. The inheritance crystal was clearly placed in the inheritance hall. After Zicheng entered the inheritance hall, he only spent a little time and some small tests to obtain the inheritance. But why would such a strange old man appear now? Is he God Caven? If it was really him, then why didn't this old man appear in the original work from beginning to end? Irene's heart was filled with questions. She began to wonder if it was because of An's rebirth, which caused such a big change in the plot. But could this person really be the owner of the inheritance, Caven? Thinking back to the original work, after Zicheng obtained the inheritance crystal, the book described Caven. She felt more and more strange, and the doubts in her heart became heavier and heavier. No, Caven shouldn't be like this. In the original work, Caven was a cultivation maniac. Moreover, he was tall and wasn't handsome. It could be said that he was a very ordinary person. Before he became a god, he wasn't a conspicuous existence in the human world. He was just a 10,000-year-old otaku. Now looking at the old man in front of her, although there were some wrinkles on his face, from the outline of his face, she could still see that when this old man was young, he was definitely a handsome man. This person couldn't be the 10,000-year-old otaku described in the book, the Caven who wasn't popular with girls because of his ordinary appearance. After thinking through all this, Irene's heart naturally raised a trace of vigilance. Now that the situation was unclear, it was better to be careful before determining whether the other party was a friend or foe. Just as Irene was thinking about the old man's identity, the old man finally opened his mouth to speak. "You're finally not here. It seems that everyone is here." The old man's face actually showed obvious excitement. There are really a lot of people entering the god's tomb this time. This lord has waited for this day for too long. This day has finally arrived. A hint of bloodthirsty madness appeared in the old man's eyes. He looked at the 10 people in the palace as if he was looking at a delicacy. He even licked his lips. Cohen, the leader of the 3rd squad of the Inferno mercenary group, pulled his vice leader Mylane and retreated towards Ming Shi and the others as fast as he could. Similarly, there were other people who had realized that something was wrong. However, after a breath, other than the pair of grandfather and grandson, as well as the seventh elder of the Idori family, Farley, all four of them, including Zicheng and Irene, had retreated to where Fengwu and the others were standing. "Who are you? You aren't God Caven." The old man, who hadn't moved an inch, suddenly raised his head to look at the mysterious person. If someone was standing beside or in front of the old man, they would find that his eyes were calm. He didn't even look at the so-called inheritance of God. Even the girl beside the old man just curiously glanced at the inheritance crystal a few times before standing there obediently, holding the old man's arm with her small hand. "Who am I?" "Of course, I am the great devil god. And all of you puny humans will become my sacrifices." The old man, who called himself a devil god, didn't think of continuing to hide his identity. In his mind, these people had already fallen into his trap. There was no need to hide anything from humans who were destined to become sacrifices. "I see, I understand." The old man nodded. "It seems that this place is really a tomb of God. It's just that God Caven didn't expect that after his death, a devil god would occupy his tomb and use this place to recover from his injuries." Hearing the old man's words, everyone was in an uproar. They couldn't believe that the person sitting in front of them was a devil god from the great war of gods and devils. This was not an ordinary devil, but a devil god. Speaking of the origin of the devil god, it was related to an ancient legend. According to the legend, in ancient times, the world was in chaos. The Divine Emperor created the world and many innate gods were born. The Divine Emperor had two sons. One ruled the light, and the other ruled the darkness. Although the two were twins, because of the incompatibility of their attributes, they were destined not to live together. Only one of the light and the darkness could exist. The Divine Emperor didn't want to see only one of his children left, so he used his supreme divine power to split the world. The two divine princes became the sun and the moon. The divine prince of light became the sun, and the divine prince of darkness became the moon. From then on, the two divine princes never saw each other again. The two divine princes could live in the world they liked. It was a happy ending. But things didn't end there. The innate gods were divided into two factions because of the split between the two divine princes. One faction worshipped the light, and the other worshipped the darkness. The faction worshipped the darkness. The original golden divinity became black demonic. They called themselves the devil god, and created a world completely different from the divine world, which was the current devil world. According to the legend, the current devil world was one of the most powerful innate gods in ancient times. Moreover, he was ranked in the top 3 peerless powerhouses. The only ones who could truly be called demon gods were those demon gods who chose the dark demonic nature at the very beginning. The demons that came after that could only be called demons. They didn't have the bloodline of a god, so they couldn't be called demon gods. The devil god was far more powerful than ordinary devils. Even Ming Shi only guessed that the other party was a superior devil. He didn't think that the other party was a devil god. Others might not know how terrifying the power of a devil god was, but Ming Shi, because of his identity, couldn't not know. His expression instantly became dignified. No matter how powerful a human was, it was impossible to be a match for a devil god. He subconsciously pulled Fengwu behind him to protect the young girl. Fengwu just looked at Ming Shi blankly, and didn't think much about it. She obediently stood next to Ming Shi. "I didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable, little guy. You can actually see through this." The guy who called himself Devil God looked at the old man with some surprise. Although the old man's appearance was similar to his, in terms of age, the Devil God didn't take advantage of the old man by calling him little guy. "It's a pity that your injuries are too serious. Now, your strength is at most at the saint level. You don't even have the strength of a god-level expert," the old man said indifferently. From the old man's tone, it could be seen that even if he knew the identity of the devil god, he didn't panic in his heart. Instead, he was very calm. Now, everyone present could see that this old man was not an ordinary person. He must be a very powerful existence. Otherwise, how could he not be afraid of a devil god? Chapter 162. Upon hearing the old man's words, a trace of anger flashed in the eyes of the old man who called himself the demon god, and the killing intent in his eyes became more obvious. So it's a little fellow at the saint level. Do you think that I will be defeated by you just because I can only maintain the strength of a saint level? Don't forget that I am the demon god. Even if I can only exert the strength of a saint level because of my injuries, I am not someone a weak human like you can easily defeat. Just now, the demon god only treated the old man and the others in front of him as food, so he did not spend any time studying their strength. After being seen through by the old man who called himself the demon god took some time to size up the old man in front of him. He saw that the other party was actually a saint-level expert hidden among a group of ordinary swordsmen and mages. Unfortunately, so what if he was a saint-level expert? He was the most powerful demon god in the world. Even if his strength was only at the saint level, he was not someone a human could defeat. Everyone was secretly anxious. Even Farley, who had been coveting the inheritance crystal and was unwilling to retreat, obediently retreated when he heard the words demon god. Now, he did not want any inheritance. He just wanted to save his life and get out of here. Although everyone was unwilling, they had no choice but to agree with the demon god. Even if they were in the same realm, the demon god and ordinary humans were not on the same level. If they were to fight the demon god of the same level as a human, they would be sending themselves to their deaths. Were they really going to die here? Everyone was worried. Ming Shi and Ajur exchanged glances. They were ready to help the warlock saint deal with the demon god at any time. Irene was prepared to enter the space and hide if the situation was not right. Zicheng was trying to contact the favorability system to see if he could exchange for anything useful to get out of this predicament. Everyone was thinking about how to escape or survive. Only Feng Wu was the calmest. She still looked ahead with a poker face. She was not worried about the confrontation between a human and a demon in front of her. Her master had taught her to fight if she could win, and run if she could not win. To Feng Wu, these were the only two options. Since that was the case, there was nothing to think about. Just when everyone was worried about their own survival, Feng Wu poked old Sack out from behind Ming Shi. That grandpa is wrong. He's not a demon god. He's just an ordinary demon. Feng Wu's soft voice suddenly rang out in the hall. Her words successfully attracted everyone's attention. Feng Wu found that so many people were looking at her, but she didn't feel embarrassed. Instead, she nodded her head firmly and emphasized that she wasn't lying. After hearing Feng Wu's words, the demon god, who had looked high and mighty, as if all living beings were ants, suddenly changed his expression and looked like he couldn't believe it. Although he quickly realized that something was wrong and restrained his emotions, everyone still saw his momentary loss of control. Little girl, are you saying that he's not a demon god? The old warlock saint turned around and looked at Feng Wu. The old warlock saint's face was still expressionless, but there was no malice in his eyes. Instead, there was a faint trace of admiration. It was naturally praiseworthy to be able to see through the true form of this demon. He's not. A real demon god coexists with the aura of a god and a demon. It's impossible for him to only sense the demonic aura. Feng Wu did not cower because she was being stared at by a warlock saint. Instead, she maintained her poker face and spoke calmly. Coexisting with the aura of a god and a demon? The old warlock saint seemed a little doubtful and puzzled. The old warlock saint was not the only one who was puzzled. Even Ajur, Ming Shi, and the others did not understand what Feng Wu was talking about. Everyone knew that demon gods had abandoned their divinity to become demon gods. Since they had become demons, how could they still have the aura of a god? If these people were all from the future world, they would definitely say in unison that this was illogical. Girl. Yes. Feng Wu nodded her little head matter-of-factly. Demon gods have not completely abandoned their divinity. They have only turned half of their divinity into their demonic nature. Demon gods can freely switch between god and demon. When the two powers are separated, they are either pure demon or pure god. However, their strength will only be half of their peak. Only when the two powers are combined will they possess the power of a demon god. Everyone felt that they had learned something new. In the past, they had never known that this was the meaning of the word demon god. Were they called demon gods because they had both demonic nature and divinity at the same time? Originally, everyone thought that they were called demon gods because they had fallen from grace. When Fengwu explained what the power of a demon god was, the face of the fake demon god who claimed to be a demon god had already turned green. He stared at Fengwu so intensely that it was as if he could bore a hole through her. "How do you know all this?" The warlock saint seemed to have an inexplicable light in his eyes as he watched the dance. What Fengwu said could be considered the secrets of the two worlds. Even he, a warlock saint, did not know about it. Yet, an ordinary little girl was able to explain it so clearly. This made the old man suspect Fengwu's identity. "I read it in a book. The old curator's library has everything. There is a book that records the demon gods." Fengwu looked at the old man with pity. She felt that this old man definitely did not like to read. Reading was good, and one could learn a lot of things. Sure enough, Ajur was right. One would know everything by reading more books. The old man suddenly understood the young girl's gaze. His originally calm face twitched, and he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Was he being looked down upon by a little girl? Ming Shi and Ajur also understood Fengwu's gaze. They secretly rejoiced in their hearts that someone had asked first. If they had asked first, they would be the ones being looked down upon. Ajur, the warlock saint, is really a good person. The warlock saint, who had been labeled as a good person, was speechless. "Little girl, since you know that gods and demons have both divinity and demonic nature at the same time, how do you know that I have not only revealed my demonic nature?" The fake demon god was unwilling to give up. "That's impossible. If you really have both divinity and demonic nature at the same time, your injuries would have healed long ago. I know that demons can absorb weaker or equally powerful demons to recover their strength. If you are a demon god, you would have absorbed the remaining power of both gods and demons to recover." "Did you also read this in a book?" Ajur wanted to know what kind of books Fengwu had been reading all day long. She could even talk about such obscure things so clearly. He had always thought that he was much more powerful than Fengwu. No, this would not do. When he went back, he had to work hard. He could not let the Fengwu girl surpass him. Fengwu nodded honestly. This child had always answered all questions. Of course, she would not say anything that she could not say. The Fengwu girl was pure, but she was not stupid. Chapter 163. Because of Fengwu's explanation, the true identity of the mysterious person who called himself a god was worth scrutinizing. It seems that not only is this guy not a real god, but he's also a demon with mediocre strength. Ajur looked disdainfully at this guy who was pretending to be a god. He thought that he might die here today. Who knew that this guy was so shameless that he even dared to pretend to be a god? When the others heard Ajur's words, they secretly nodded in agreement. If this demon was really a demon god or a powerful superior demon, he would have already absorbed weaker existences to recover. Looking at his current appearance, he was so old and weak. It was obvious that he hadn't recovered much even after tens of thousands of years. Just like what Fengwu said, if he was really such a powerful demon, how could he not be able to absorb other weaker demons to recover? Now that his injuries were so serious that he couldn't even maintain his youthful appearance, it could only mean that this guy wasn't such a powerful existence in the demon race. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in such a miserable state. "Little guy, you've successfully angered this lord." The fake demon god's eyes were full of resentment and hatred. Most of this hatred was directed at Fengwu, who asked Fengwu to expose his secret. In fact, Ajur's guess was right. This guy who called himself a god was just a weak demon soldier in ancient times. In the demon race, demon soldiers were like cannon fodder. His strength naturally couldn't compare to other demons. Even many demon soldiers like him were stronger than him. Fortunately, although he wasn't strong, he was very smart. He carefully hid on the battlefield. Although he was seriously injured, he still managed to survive. He secretly hid in the divine tomb of a heavenly god. He concealed his aura in the divine tomb and finally managed to escape from the battle that killed countless people. It was just that his strength wasn't strong in the demon race at that time. It was impossible for him to absorb the power left behind by other demons in the two-realm battlefield to recover. In the demon race, the ranks were very clear. It was simply impossible for a low-level demon to absorb the power of a mid-level demon or a high-level demon. At that time, not only would he not be able to absorb the power, he would also suffer a powerful backlash and self-explode. Because of this demon couldn't recover his strength. He could only choose to sleep to slowly recover his original strength. If it wasn't for the opening of the divine tomb, there would be too many magicians and swordmasters. Although the strength of these humans wasn't very strong, they were still a great tonic for the demon. As long as he absorbed the power of these people, his injuries would be mostly healed. When the time came, he could return to the demon realm to slowly recover. Unfortunately, no matter how good his calculations were, this demon was still a god. The appearance of Fengwu, this demon was almost vomiting blood. Originally, he had a good plan, but who knew that a sage-level powerhouse would suddenly appear? Yes, he had already discovered that a warlock saint had appeared in this space. He didn't expose him just now because he wanted to create a mysterious atmosphere to scare the warlock saint so that he wouldn't dare to act rashly. If it wasn't for the appearance of the warlock saint, he wouldn't have thought of a way to impersonate the great demon god. He hoped that the great demon god wouldn't punish him. To put it bluntly, he was still a small soldier in the demon world. Even though he had lived for so many years, he still had a natural fear of high-level demons, not to mention the high and mighty demon god. It would be strange if he didn't feel nervous when impersonating the demon god. We detestable humans. Do you really think that I can't do anything to you? The demon laughed coldly. He had lied to these humans just now because he didn't want to directly confront the warlock saint and waste his strength. If they really fought, how would he, a dignified demon, be afraid of humans? Needless to say, ever since the demon's identity was exposed, Ajur and the others really didn't feel as afraid as they did at the beginning. Even the warlock saint, who had been calm all this while, heaved a sigh of relief. Although he had been expressionless just now, he was actually very nervous. He just didn't want to lose face in front of his granddaughter. Now, it was just a low-level demon, and they were all sage-level demons. Even if they couldn't defeat him, he was 50% confident that he could escape with his granddaughter. Everyone had their own plans. Only Fengwu didn't think so much. Although she said that this demon's level wasn't high and wasn't very powerful, Fengwu didn't underestimate him. The ancient demons were different from the current demons. At that time, the demon's blood was purer, and they were more powerful. Even if he was just a low-level demon, he shouldn't be underestimated. Ming-Shi also thought the same. When it came to the ancient demons, Ming-Shi wouldn't underestimate them. Even if the demon's level wasn't high, he definitely wasn't someone they could defeat with their current strength. No matter who you are, you can forget about escaping from here today, the warlock saint said calmly as he looked at the demon. Escape? What an arrogant human. You'd better look at your own feet before talking to me. The demon sneered in his heart. When he finished speaking, the entire hall was filled with red light. One by one, humans appeared in the red light. These people were the adventurers who had entered the tomb of the god of sin with them. What's going on? Why are we here? The adventurers who were still in the second stage were a little confused when they suddenly changed places. We're still in the tomb of the god of sin. I was clearly still trapped in the first stage. How did I appear here? Where is this place? Who knows? Come out and say something. Who can tell me what's going on? Amidst the roars of many men, this female voice wasn't so obvious. However, Ming-Shi and the others still heard it. They turned their heads and looked in the direction of the voice. Wasn't it the injured Elena? Ming-Shi walked over and brought Elena and the others over. Now, everyone was here. Even Eve and Rika were found and brought over. The two girls immediately rushed to Zicheng's side. Ruglas, Arguros, Skycliff, Drew, Tingfeng, Tingyu, and Pei Qing immediately approached Fengwu and Ming Shi. "Drew, big brother Pei Qing, where did you go? Xiao Wu can't find you." Fengwu relaxed when she saw the two. She had been worried that something had happened to them. Naturally, she was happy to see them. "Stop talking, we almost couldn't get out." Pei Qing and Drew looked like they were still in shock. It looked like they had been given quite a scare by the nightmare corridor. Rika and Eve also came to Zicheng's side and told him what happened after they separated. Irene was not left out, because when Elena appeared, she went to talk to her. Chapter 164. Their conversation didn't last long. Not long after these people appeared, a blood-red array pattern suddenly appeared on the ceiling and floor of the hall. With the appearance of these red array patterns, everyone felt that they couldn't move. It was as if their entire body was fixed in place. "What's going on? Why can't I move? Who did this? What is he trying to do? If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have come to look for the divine weapon. I'm a swordsman, why would I want the inheritance of a sorcerer? Not to mention that I couldn't even pass the first level, I might even die here today," a man said with a long face. "Isn't that right? I regret it so much that my intestines are turning green. I finally made it to the second level, but I almost died in the hands of a magical beast. I didn't pass the third level, and now, something like this has happened. If I had known that this month would be unfavorable for me, I wouldn't have come out no matter what. I would rather stay in the Adventurers Guild until the end," the man said as he beat his chest and stomped his feet. The entire hall was filled with panicked screams and all sorts of regretful voices. These people regretted it more than once. Why did they rush forward as soon as they heard the words "Tomb of the God of Sin"? Now they were going to die here. These regretful voices and curses didn't last long because the demon soldiers had started to move. After the array in the hall was activated, it didn't only have the ability to fix people. Those who were fixed in place and closest to the demon soldiers couldn't help but move forward. When they were 2 meters away from the demon soldiers, the blood on their bodies automatically flowed into the demon soldiers' mouths. Those tall and burly men were sucked dry just like that and fell in front of everyone's eyes. It was only at this moment that most people noticed that there was an old man sitting in the hall. The key now wasn't the appearance of this old man, but the fact that this old man looked like a big boss at first glance. Moreover, he could suck people's blood. How were they going to deal with this? They didn't want to be sucked dry. This array was very powerful. Even someone as strong as the Warlock Saint was fixed in place. Fortunately, the Warlock Saint wasn't an ordinary person, so the demon soldiers didn't touch him. They only attacked the people who were teleported in. "What's going on?" Skycliffe asked. Ming Shi gave a simple account of what had happened. Everyone couldn't believe that there was actually a demon living in the god's tomb. Although this demon didn't sound very strong, he could use formations to suck blood. Moreover, he had the strength of a saint. Even if he was just a small soldier in the demon race, in the human world, he was a boss. Of course, they didn't know the term boss. If they did, they wouldn't mind using it. Ancient demon clan? Interesting. When Tianya heard about the demons, not only was he not worried, his eyes even lit up with fighting spirit. To be able to see the word spirit in Tianya's cold eyes, it could only mean one thing, that was when he met a worthy opponent and wanted to fight with them. Fengwu stood at the side and didn't say anything. She watched as people were sucked dry and then turned into dried corpses. The demon clan was indeed a cruel race. Fengwu thought about the evaluation of the demon clan in the book. She didn't think of jumping out to save people, let alone being a savior. Master had said that one should do as much as one could. Because Xiaochun had eaten an all-element spirit, he was now sleeping like a drunk. Without Xiaochun's help, Fengwu didn't think that she could defeat an ancient demon clan. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but the demon clan, who had sucked the blood of more than 10 people, looked younger and younger. His originally old face had returned to a middle-aged man who was about 40 years old. Everyone knew that they couldn't let him recover like this. Otherwise, once he recovered his strength, everyone would die here. Even Ajur, who had just said that he looked down on the demon soldier, corrected his attitude. The demon soldier's strength wasn't great in the demon world, but in the human world, he was a peerless expert. With the help of this strange formation, they were really in big trouble. After seeing how ferocious the demon soldier was, no one dared to underestimate him anymore. Just as everyone was about to attack, the warlock saint moved. The old man directly took out a green staff from the space. The staff looked ordinary, but no one dared to underestimate it. How could a warlock saint's weapon be ordinary? Later on, the small green staff used its strength to prove to the world that it was indeed not simple. The warlock saint also knew that the longer the battle dragged on, the more advantageous it would be for the demon soldier. He directly waved his staff and silently chanted a spell. As he chanted, the small green staff became more and more green. At the top of the staff, it was obvious that a powerful force was gathering. That warlock saint must be a wood elemental magician, Eve said to Zicheng. Although the others didn't say anything, they also thought so. The green light on the staff was so obvious that it was indeed a reaction from wood elemental magicians. It's not wood elemental magicians, Fengwu suddenly said softly. If you say it's not, then it's not. What kind of eyesight are you looking at? Can't you see that the green light only appears from wood elemental magicians? Eve didn't like Fengwu to begin with. Now that Fengwu actually refuted her words in public, she naturally didn't want to give Fengwu any face. Xiao Wu, did you see wrongly? That's obviously a green light. Although Tingyu didn't want to help Eve, the truth was so obvious. Even if she wanted to help her friend, she couldn't lie through her teeth. Even Elena and the others didn't know what to say. This was obviously the fluctuation of wood elemental magicians. As seniors, how could they distort the truth to help Fengwu? Only Ajur and Ming she had a mysterious smile on their faces and didn't join in the discussion. Some things were really hard to say. For example, a certain man finally married a beautiful woman and was waiting for the bride to finish bathing so that they could do it together. In the end, when the bride came out of the bath, the beautiful woman turned out to be a huge dinosaur. That feeling was really awesome. This story told us that even if you saw it with your own eyes, it might not be true. The beautiful woman you saw could be painted, the beautiful photo could be photoshopped, and any beautiful woman on the street could be a transvestite. And now, this green staff told us that even though it looked green, it wasn't a wood elemental staff. After chanting the last word of the spell, the staff was gently waved in a pair of skinny old hands. A terrifying and powerful fire magic immediately attacked the demon soldier. The demon soldier wasn't to be trifled with. He separated his hands and muttered an incantation. 2 black balls of light appeared in his hands as he chanted the incantation. The black balls of light were filled with dark elemental energy. After the balls of light appeared, the demon soldier waved his hands and the 2 mysterious and powerful balls of light rushed towards the flames. Chapter 165. The 2 forces exploded in the air, and those who were close to them were sent flying. Those who were further away were also injured to a certain extent. Both parties exchanged chi, magic, and magic. Fire magic and dark magic intertwined in the air, and the whole palace shook as if it was in danger of collapsing at any time. A minute, I still can't move. If we don't leave now, will we be crushed to death in this place? Elena tried to move her feet, but it was useless. Her feet were firmly stuck to the floor, and she couldn't move at all. Let's wait and see. We'll think of a way. Ming Shi's eyes flashed with worry, but he didn't say much. Don't be afraid. At most, I'll open the seal later. I don't believe that we can't escape, Ajur said. It's useless. Where do you think this is? We can't communicate with the upper realm here. Where are you going to open the seal? Auguros said. Ajur had to admit that he really didn't think of this problem. Actually, I have a way that might be able to save us, Zicheng said hesitantly. To be honest, if she had a choice, she really didn't want to exchange for that thing. That thing required a lot of affinity points, and it wasn't very practical. However, at this time, she had no choice but to do so. Irene sneered secretly. It seemed like the female lead couldn't help but use the things in the system. You said you have a way? Ruglaz asked suspiciously. A first-year kid telling you that she could solve a predicament that even a warlock saint couldn't solve. Anyone with a brain would be suspicious. Therefore, it wasn't strange that Ruglaz had doubts. However, Eve, Zicheng's die-hard fan, wouldn't allow anyone to doubt Zicheng. Senior Ruglaz, how can you doubt little Cheng? Little Cheng has never lied. Eve didn't have the self-awareness of facing a senior and directly called out to Ruglaz. Although Eve's attitude wasn't good, Ruglaz didn't say anything. Instead, he felt a little embarrassed. On the other hand, Elena and Arguros were even more dissatisfied with Eve. This girl named Eve was too unruly. They really didn't know how such a girl could enter the Notre Dame du Starlight. What's the solution? Pei Qing didn't care what they were talking about. He was more interested in how to get out of this predicament. The method is very simple. I have a scroll of array-breaking scroll here. As long as you place the scroll at the eye of the array, it can break any array in the world. Zicheng took out the scroll he had exchanged for and showed it to everyone. A brilliant scroll of array breaking appeared in front of everyone. This scroll looked extraordinary. It was no wonder that Zicheng said that such a small scroll could break any array in the world. But where is the eye of the formation? Tingyu asked. Everyone was stumped. There really wasn't a professional in array among them. It's under that person, Fengwu said. Although Fengwu didn't speak much, she had been paying attention to the movements of the people around her. When she heard that they were looking for the eye of the array, she naturally pointed out the location of the eye of the array. Everyone looked at the position where the demon soldier was sitting. It was right in front of the main hall, a little far from where they were. They couldn't move now, so it was impossible for them to go over. Moreover, even if they went over, it wouldn't be of much use. Didn't they see that the demon soldier was sitting there motionless? Even when he fought with the warlock saint, he didn't move. It seemed that the possibility of him moving was really low. How did you know, Xiao Wu? Ajur asked curiously. Just like that. Fengwu looked at Ajur strangely, as if she didn't understand why he asked this. The fight between the warlock saint and the demon soldier became more and more intense. The man and the demon used all their means, but in the end, the demon soldier was more skillful. The warlock saint was defeated and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. As expected of an ancient demon soldier. Even if they were in the same realm, they weren't an opponent that could be defeated by humans of the same realm. You're just a mere human. You're really overestimating yourself, the demon queen said sarcastically. The warlock saint's expression was ugly. He looked at the demon soldier with an undisguised murderous intent. The young girl beside him looked at her grandfather worriedly, but she didn't dare to say anything to distract him. Don't be complacent. This is no longer the ancient human world. The human world already has the power to protect its own world. Even if you leave, you won't be able to escape the arrest of the arbitration tribunal. Everyone present knew that the warlock saint was speaking the truth. As long as this demon was born, the elites of the arbitration tribunal would rush over immediately. This demon wouldn't be able to escape the punishment of the arbitration tribunal. It was a pity that they were facing an old demon soldier that had been cooped up for tens of thousands of years. It wasn't interested in the new power of the human world at all. Instead, it thought that the warlock saint was moaning before he died. The warlock saint, the only combat power on the human side, was already seriously injured. After the warlock saint lost most of his combat power, the demon soldier continued to absorb blood to increase its power. One by one, the human powerhouses turned into dried corpses. Their screams echoed in the hall again and again, making one's hair stand on end. Don't suck my blood. Don't, let me go. Let me go, I beg you. Don't suck my blood. You have to suck them. Don't suck my blood. Shrill cries rose and fell in succession within the hall, and the cries were filled with resentment and unwillingness. What should we do? If we don't act now, it'll be our turn soon, Rika said anxiously. That's right. With the speed at which the demon soldier was absorbing blood, if they couldn't break the array, everyone would die. Xiaochun had woken up? Fengwu sensed the movement in her dantian and sent her consciousness into it. Sure enough, she saw that Xiaochun's entire sword was much more agile. It even turned in circles to greet her. Xiaochun, there's a powerful guy outside. Can you lure it away? Fengwu asked. Xiaochun waved his sword, as if to say that it was no problem. While Fengwu and Little Silver were communicating, Ming Shi and the others were also discussing how to lure the demon away and how to place the array-breaking scroll at the eye of the array. Neither of these two matters was something that could be done normally. Now that the two matters were placed together, it could be said that it was impossible to accomplish anything. If they hadn't been trapped in the array, it would have been fine. Unfortunately, they were all trapped now. Even the only warlock saint who could possibly escape was seriously injured. What should they do? Why don't you try using your pure purple heavenly sun fire? Rika said hesitantly. When Rika said this, everyone thought of something. That's right. Zicheng had the heavenly fire. Perhaps the demon soldier would automatically leave the eye of the array after being burned by the heavenly fire. Chapter 166. They hadn't thought of it before, but the more they thought about it, the more feasible it seemed. Other than Ming Shi, Skycliff, and a few others, the majority looked at Zicheng with hope. Zicheng looked back at the crowd awkwardly and said, I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. Although my pure purple heavenly sun fire is powerful, it can't be too far away from me. That demon soldier is too far away from me. My heavenly fire can't touch him at all. Zicheng had thought of this method before, but it was destined to be impossible. Rika and the others sighed in disappointment. After a while, more and more adventurers were killed. Only a few people standing near the door were still alive. Those in the front and center were unlucky and died. Only Meow Meow and a few others were left standing there alone. They were so scared that they almost cried. Help, I don't want to die. My wife is about to give birth. What will happen to her if I die? My mother is still waiting for me to go back and marry her. Don't kill me. All kinds of desperate screams were heard. The cold-blooded demon soldier wouldn't be merciful just because these people were crying. These were all energy that could help him recover his strength. How could he let them go? Because the demon soldier had absorbed a large amount of human blood, he looked younger and younger. Now, he looked like he was in his early 30s. The current demon soldier didn't look old at all. Just when everyone was in despair, an ancient silver sword suddenly flew out of Fengwu's dantian. This sword that suddenly flew out was, of course, Xiaochun. After Xiaochun came out of Fengwu's dantian, he was very excited. He hadn't come out for a long time. The last time he came out, he came and went in a hurry. He didn't have time to show the world the power of his pure sword. How could he let this happen? Xiaochun, do your best. Fengwu's face was expressionless. She imitated a Jur and Tenk when they cheered her on. Unfortunately, her face was expressionless. This cheering wasn't convincing at all. Fortunately, Xiaochun was not a calculative divine sword. To him, receiving a cheer from his master was enough to make Xiaochun fly with joy. As soon as Xiaochun appeared, Ming Shi and the others recognized him. Wasn't this the divine sword that appeared last time? Zicheng and Irene looked at Xiaochun with complicated expressions. That sword looked extraordinary, and they wondered how Fengwu had obtained it. Eve's heart was filled with envy. How could Fengwu get all the good things? That sword must be a sacred artifact. It possessed such a spiritual nature. How could such a spiritual object choose a two-faced woman like Fengwu as its master? What a blind man! This was the first time Rika saw Xiaochun appear. Although she had heard that Fengwu had helped them a lot on the way here, she had thought that these seniors were just trying to make Fengwu look good. She didn't expect that such a thing was true. How could a commoner be so lucky to obtain such a spiritual weapon? Rika and Eve were the same. They thought that Xiaochun was at most a sacred artifact. They didn't even think that it was a divine artifact. As soon as Xiaochun appeared, he kissed Fengwu for a while before flying towards the demon soldier. The moment Xiaochun appeared, the demon soldier immediately felt a fatal danger. He looked in the direction where the sense of danger came from, and his eyes widened. Impossible! It can't be! How could it appear in the lower realm? The demon soldier shouted in shock. The warlock saint also looked at Xiaochun thoughtfully. He seemed to be recalling the divine artifacts in the ancient records. No matter how hard he thought, he couldn't figure out where this sword came from. Xiaochun didn't give the demon soldier too much of a chance to speak. He had come out to make the demon soldier move, not to talk to it. Xiaochun flew closer to the demon soldier. He didn't even need to attack. The demon soldier ran away as if it had seen a ghost. It didn't even care about the people in the hall who were still alive. It actually escaped just like that. It escaped. Xiaochun saw that the demon soldier actually gave him face. He flew back and acted cute to Fengwu. Fengwu touched Xiaochun's sword. Xiaochun is really capable. Xiaochun's sword was perfect. He was embarrassed to be praised by his master. There was no one controlling the magic array. Now, they didn't have to worry about their blood being sucked out. However, if they didn't destroy the center of the magic array, they could only wait for the magic array to run out of energy before they could leave. In the current situation, there was no time for them to wait. What if the demon soldier came back? Fengwu asked Zicheng for a scroll to break the magic array. She didn't have to trouble two people for the same task. She hung the scroll on Xiaochun's sword. The hard-working Xiaochun obediently placed the scroll in the center of the magic array. Then, he used the sword to cut the knot that tied the scroll. Once the knot was cut, the magic array activated automatically. A soft white light quickly surrounded the entire hall from the center of the magic array. A few minutes later, the red light disappeared. Just like that, the magic array disappeared. Everyone who was trapped in this blood array was saved. The people who were still alive almost knelt down and cheered. They believed that after this incident, no one would dare to enter any ancient tombs to explore. It would take a few years for them to recover from this psychological trauma. After Xiaochun completed his task, he returned to Fengwu's dantian. Regarding Xiaochun's miraculous abilities, the survivors naturally saw it. Some guessed that it was a sacred weapon, some thought it was a divine weapon. In short, whether it was a sacred weapon or a divine weapon, that sword was a good thing that they didn't even dare to dream of. And such a powerful weapon was actually in the hands of a little girl. What was the difference between this and a child holding a gold bar in the downtown area? Just when everyone was sighing that a little girl like Fengwu could actually have such a powerful weapon, two figures, one purple and one green, moved at the same time. After the purple and green figures moved, several other figures moved at the same time. These people's goal was very similar. It was precisely the inheritance crystal that was thrown by the demon soldier. The purple and green figures were naturally Zicheng and Irene. In addition to the captain and vice-captain of the third team of the Inferno mercenary group, there were also the seventh elder of the Idoli family, Farley, the sixth elder of the Lienya family, Shiat, and the captain of the fourth team of the werewolf mercenaries. Apart from these people, there were also two experts from other families. These people all reacted quickly. As soon as they were teleported over, they retreated more than 10 steps in the direction of the door. This was how they managed to preserve their lives and prevent the demon soldier from sucking their blood to heal their wounds. In an instant, there were 9 people who joined the fight for the inheritance crystal. However, the strongest of them all, the warlock Saint Monzi, and the warlock saint's granddaughter, Edith, didn't seem to care about the inheritance crystal at all. Monzi only looked in the direction that the demon soldier had escaped. After thinking for a while, he disappeared from the hall with his granddaughter, Edith. Chapter 167. The 9 people who were originally worried that Monzi would make a move on the inheritance crystal heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Monzi leave. They now viewed each other as enemies and were secretly on guard. Originally, beginner magicians didn't have the ability to fly. Logically speaking, Zicheng and Irene shouldn't have been able to compete with the great swordsmen and great magicians in terms of speed. However, the two women had their own fortuitous encounters. They both had luxurious items like flight scrolls, which allowed beginner magicians to fly for a period of time. The two women each used a flight scroll, which was why they weren't inferior to the 7 experts in terms of speed. Ming Shi only glanced at Irene and Zicheng before turning his head. "Let's leave this place first. We can't stay here for long. We have to send news of the existence of the demonic soldier to the Star Hall. When the time comes, the experts of the Star Hall will naturally come to subdue the demonic soldier." Unlike Irene and Zicheng, who were most concerned about the god's inheritance, Ming Shi was most concerned about whether the demonic soldier had escaped or not. If it had really escaped, where would it go? The demonic soldier was naturally savage and bloodthirsty. If they didn't find it quickly, more people would die. Ming Shi is right. We should do that. However, we are now trapped here. How do we get out? Ruglas walked to the entrance of the palace and opened it completely. He saw that the sky outside was overcast, and the air was still filled with the stench of blood. He couldn't see the exit at all. At this time, in the hall, after the initial fight between the 9 people, the other survivors who hadn't recovered from their shock finally came to their senses. In this hall, there was still a god's inheritance to fight for, so there was no time to chat. The magician immediately joined in, and the swordsman also joined in after thinking for a while. Even if he couldn't use it himself, he could still make a lot of money by selling it to others. At this time, whoever retreated would be a big idiot. Originally, there were only 9 people fighting for the inheritance. Now, it had turned into a chaotic battle involving dozens of people. After the demonic soldier sucked them dry, there were less than 50 people left alive. Most of them were tempted by the words, "God's inheritance." They did not care if the inheritance was useful to them. For the sake of the benefits, most of them took action. Even Rika and Eve had joined in. Eve naturally wanted to help Zicheng, while Rika's favorability towards Zicheng hadn't reached 100% yet. Naturally, she was more concerned about herself. The reason why she helped was because she wanted to fish in troubled waters. In the end, she was driven by her own interests. In the chaos of the palace, the people who were lucky to survive just now only had interests in their eyes. They had completely forgotten about the danger of death. Ming Shi and the others who didn't fight for the inheritance had already left the palace and appeared outside the palace. There were a few adventurers who followed them out. They were all really smart people. They didn't know if the demonic soldier would come back. The restriction here obviously hadn't been lifted. At this time, they didn't want to escape, but wanted to obtain the inheritance. Wasn't that courting death? Unfortunately, such a simple logic wasn't something that everyone could understand. Feng Wu followed Ming Shi and the others out of the palace. The group of people lingered outside the palace, each of them thinking of a way out. Feng Wu didn't know much about restrictions and couldn't see where the way out was. This place was barren, and it was impossible to ask the plants to find a way out. Feng Wu was a little depressed. The demonic soldier had escaped, and everyone was trapped. If only she was a little stronger and could use all of Xiaochun's strength. In the eyes of others, Xiaochun was incomparably powerful. The Infernal Queen fled when she saw him, but as the owner of the pure sword, Feng Wu knew that Xiaochun could purify all the evil in the world. The demonic soldier killed people like scything flax and had a cruel heart. Once Xiaochun got close to him, he would naturally be purified by Xiaochun. However, only Feng Wu knew that Xiaochun's strength was indeed very strong. His purification ability was top-notch, but if she really wanted to use Xiaochun to fight someone, she couldn't do it now. Xiaochun's strength was too strong. With her strength, using Xiaochun's move could empty her body of strength. If she had used Xiaochun to fight the demonic soldier, after one move, if the demonic soldier hadn't been destroyed, she would have been dead. That was because it was easy for the demonic soldier to kill a person who had lost her strength. Although Xiaochun had intelligence, his range of movement was limited by Feng Wu's power. If it wasn't for Feng Wu's power being too low, the demonic soldier wouldn't have been able to escape from the pure sword's pursuit even if he used all of his trump cards. In this battle, Feng Wu saw her own shortcomings. If she was a little stronger, the demonic soldier wouldn't have been able to escape from the pure sword. Now, they wouldn't have been trapped here. After coming to this world for a while, Fengwu was no longer the ignorant girl who lived on Mount Yuehua. She knew the importance of strength. Just like what her master said, no matter where she went, strength spoke louder than words. Sure enough, what her master said was right. She must work harder in the future. She must become a peerless expert like her master. Her master was so powerful. No one dared to come to Mount Yuehua to challenge her master. In the future, she must be as powerful as her master. Fengwu secretly vowed in her heart. Fengwu's thoughts drifted far away, but no one noticed. They were all thinking about how to leave this place. Ming Shi was very calm. He frowned sometimes and was deep in thought. At first glance, it was obvious that he was thinking about something serious. Elena and the others didn't disturb Ming Shi. Unknowingly, the battle in the hall had come to a conclusion. Zicheng and Irene, these two little girls who were originally not in the eyes of the 7 experts, became the dark horses of this battle. Zicheng had countless magic tools in his hands, and all kinds of scrolls were flying all over the sky. Irene was also not someone to be trifled with. No one would have thought that Irene actually contracted a baby sacred beast. Although this sacred beast was only in its infancy, its identity as a sacred beast was there. Even if it was still weak, it was not something that ordinary people could resist. This sacred beast was actually one of the opportunities that Zicheng would get in the future. The place where it was located was somewhat hidden, but there was no danger. Irene used her own foresight to go to that place one step ahead of Zicheng and successfully contracted the egg of the sacred beast. That was how this baby sacred beast was born. According to the original work, this little guy had to stay in the egg for more than a year before it could meet Zicheng and break out of the egg with the help of Zicheng's blood. Now, because of the arrival of Irene, some things in the book had been brought forward. The sacred beast was also born from the egg more than a year earlier. This baby sacred beast shape was somewhat like a puppy. It was very cute. If it wasn't for the genuine sacred beast's aura, no one would believe that it was a sacred beast. Chapter 168. As soon as the little sacred beast appeared, it immediately created a shield to cover Irene. At the same time, it launched an attack. Everyone only saw a bright light before their eyes. It was so bright that they couldn't open their eyes. They had no choice but to close their eyes to prevent their eyes from being hurt by the strong light. Oh no! At this time, most of the experts already knew that they had been tricked. Unfortunately, they couldn't see anything with such strong light. Zicheng covered her eyes with her hand. She was also very anxious. She had underestimated Irene's combat power. Although she was just a beginner like her, her methods were not weak. She had actually contracted such a powerful sacred beast. When the strong light illuminated the entire hall, Zicheng knew that something was wrong. As expected, when she opened her eyes again, the inheritance crystal had disappeared. At the same time, Irene and her sacred beast had disappeared. At the same time that the inheritance crystal disappeared, the entire space began to shake. Then, starting from the sky, it turned into pieces of rocks and fell from the sky. A large light hole appeared in the sky. The aura of the outside world came from there. If there were no accidents, that was obviously the exit. Originally, the exit would only appear after someone had obtained the inheritance. Ming Shi and the others were naturally delighted. They used various methods to fly in the air and headed toward the exit in the sky. When they passed through the light hole, they found that they had indeed appeared in the two-realm battlefield. At this time, the sky was already dark. When they had entered, it was clearly still daytime. They didn't know how long they had been in the tomb of the god of sin. The moment Ming Shi came out of the tomb of the god of sin, he immediately used a special method to contact the Star Hall. He believed that the Star Hall would soon send people over to eliminate the demonic soldier who had killed countless people. As time passed, more and more survivors appeared in the two-realm battlefield. Except for some who were unlucky and died in the chaotic battle later on, the rest were adventurers who hadn't been killed by the demonic soldier. Zicheng was naturally among them. When she realized that Irene had disappeared, she had also thought of looking for her. However, when the exit appeared, she immediately gave up on the idea of staying behind to look for Irene. The inheritance of God was hard to come by, but she had the system in her hands. As long as she worked hard in the future, she could even exchange for the bloodline of God, let alone the inheritance. Although it was a pity to lose a God's inheritance, it wasn't too painful. The others didn't have such a good mentality. They believed that after today, Irene would definitely become the #1 public enemy of these aristocratic families. After all, since she dared to snatch food from the mouths of these aristocratic families and mercenary groups, how could these people let her off so easily? When these people left the divine tomb, the first thing they did was to search for Irene's figure. Unfortunately, they couldn't find her. When Irene had decided to snatch the inheritance, she had already made all the preparations. How could she be so easily caught? All of you, stop right there. Hand over the girl who snatched the inheritance. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving this place. The sixth elder of the Lienya family, Shiat, gloomily looked at Ming Shi and the others, killing intent surfacing in his eyes. The seventh elder of the Italy family, Farley, also surrounded them. This time, the great families had suffered great losses. Most of the juniors they brought out for training had died in the divine tomb. Only a few of them were lucky enough to survive. If they couldn't bring the inheritance back, they would definitely be held accountable. After all, many of these juniors were the descendants of the upper echelons of the family. They couldn't be easily harmed. Now that so many of them had died, even as elders of the family, they wouldn't be able to explain it. In short, in order to give an explanation to the family, even if the inheritance crystal had been fused with someone else, they still had to bring the little brat back. As long as they brought back the little brat who had fused with the inheritance, they wouldn't have to be afraid of being held accountable by the family. Although only the Italy family and the Lienya family acted, the survivors of the other great forces also stepped forward to make things difficult for them. However, they didn't intend to meddle in other people's business. This time, the great families had suffered great losses. It was better to think about how to make up for it. How would we know where she went? Who wouldn't be angry that she stole the inheritance? If we could find her, I would be the first to come after her. Why would I still be standing here? Eve had long regarded the inheritance as Zicheng's possession. Now that Irene had snatched the inheritance, Eve naturally regarded her as an enemy. Naturally, her tone wasn't very good. Although Eve's tone was bad, her reasoning was reasonable. Just now, they didn't care whether Eve and Rika had participated in the snatching. However, Zicheng had indeed taken action. It was obvious that Zicheng also had the intention to snatch the inheritance. Of course, it was also possible that the two of them were originally in cahoots. Just now, Zicheng had acted at the same time as Irene, who had snatched the inheritance. The two of them had also come together. Naturally, they would be regarded as a group. Ming Shi and the others naturally thought of this point. Regardless of whether they had snatched the inheritance or not, Irene had indeed acted together with them from the beginning. Now that she was suspected of being an accomplice, it wasn't strange at all. Don't try to quibble. The few of you are obviously in cahoots. Are you staying here to cover for your accomplices to escape? The seventh elder of the Adori family, Farley, shouted sternly. This shout was obviously infused with magic energy. Eve bore the brunt of the attack and immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Feng Wu and the others were a little better. Most of Farley's attack was aimed at Eve. Although the others weren't feeling well, other than dizziness and ringing in their ears, they didn't feel any other discomfort. If the few of you want to take action, please do so. There's no need to pin this groundless accusation on us. Auguros looked down on the elders of these two great families. They were still elders of great families, yet they could lower themselves to make things difficult for a few students. He didn't know how these people became elders of their families. Feng Wu, Ming Shi, Ajur, Skycliffe and the others all stared at the elders of these two great families. Each of them was ready to fight. A few youngsters who don't know what's good for them. It seems like you've made up your mind to protect that stinking brat who stole the inheritance. If you don't hand her over, don't blame us two old men for bullying the weak. The sixth elder of the Lienya family, Shiat, wasn't someone who cared about his face. This guy was famous for being a poisonous snake. Once he set his eyes on a target, no matter if it was a man or a woman, old or young, he would never let them go. Moreover, this person was narrow-minded. Now that he couldn't capture Irene, he naturally wanted to vent his anger on his accomplices. Of course, he also conveniently used Ming Shi and the others to lure Irene out. Even though he knew that the possibility of Irene appearing because of these people was very small, Shiat didn't want to give up even the slightest hope. Chapter 169. Farley's thoughts were similar to Shiat's. He also wanted to use these little guys to lure out Irene. At the same time, he also understood that the possibility of doing so was very small. However, so what if the possibility was small? If they wanted to blame someone, they could only blame these guys for being with that hateful girl. Even if they couldn't find her, it was still good to vent their anger on these guys. Those who hadn't left yet stood at the side, whispering to each other while pointing at Feng Wu's group. Most of them had pity in their eyes, but most of them were gloating. No one wanted to risk offending the two great families by extending their hands to Feng Wu's group. Cohen of the Inferno mercenary group naturally saw this as well. During this treasure hunt in the Divine Tomb, other than picking some spirit fruits and herbs, they didn't gain anything special. Most importantly, many of their brothers had died this time. It could be considered a huge loss. Fortunately, the members of the Inferno mercenary group were more open-minded. Although they didn't obtain the inheritance, they didn't want to make things difficult for the students of the Notre Dame du Starlight. They didn't expect Shiat and Idori families Farley to be so shameless. After losing the inheritance, they went to make things difficult for the students of the other families. They didn't know how such narrow-minded people could become elders of such great families. You guys have the nerve to say that. You actually made a move on innocent people. The Lienya and Idori families are really shameless. Cohen's disdainful sneer sounded at this time. Shiat and Farley instinctively looked over, wanting to see which reckless person dared to offend the elders of their two great families at the same time. In the end, when they turned around, they saw that it was actually the members of the Inferno mercenary group. Their hearts sank. They didn't expect Cohen of the Inferno mercenary group to stand up for a group of students. Their expressions turned ugly. What? I hit the nail on the head. You have nothing to say. Seeing that the two of them didn't say anything, Cohen simply walked over with Miriam. The two of them stood not far from Farley and Shiat and sneered. Cohen, this has nothing to do with you. We don't want to be enemies with the Inferno mercenary group. You better take your people and leave quickly. Mind your own business. Farley said to the two people standing not far from him. If I do, what are you going to do? Cohen wasn't going to fall for his tricks. Others might be afraid of the two families' influence, but the Inferno mercenary group wasn't afraid at all. Moreover, the Inferno mercenary group was the same as the Lienya and Idoli families. They were all big forces, and it wasn't easy for big forces to become enemies with each other. After all, if they really fought, it wouldn't be good for anyone. At most, it would just be a few small fights and it would be over. Cohen's arrogant words made the faces of the elders of the two families turn even uglier. It seemed like this fellow was determined to get involved. Do you really want to stand up for these unrelated people? Shiat's face was gloomy, and his tone was a little strange. That's right. It's my fault for not being used to seeing you guys bully others like this. If you lose in the inheritance fight, that's because you're not as skilled as others. What's the point of venting your anger on other people's classmates? I just can't stand your way of doing things. Cohen, do you think I don't dare to attack you? Shiat's sinister voice sounded as dark magic elements floated around his body. Cohen didn't want to be outdone and released his Do Chi. Both of them were elders of big forces, so their strength naturally couldn't be underestimated. Captain Cohen, thank you for being willing to help us at this time. Let us deal with the rest ourselves. Ming Shi spoke at this time. His voice was clear and pleasant to the ears, and it seemed to have some kind of soothing power. Can you guys do it? Cohen asked doubtfully. He was a little worried that these little guys would try to be brave. Although Shiat and Farley's character wasn't good, their strength was undeniable. Students like Ming Shi and the others were no match for those two old men. There shouldn't be any problems, Ming Shi smiled lightly. His smile was clear and light, and it made people feel comfortable. Since that's the case, you guys be careful. Originally, Cohen wanted to help, but it was obvious that the other party didn't want him to interfere. Cohen wasn't a person who liked to meddle. Since the other party said that they didn't need his help, why would he meddle in their affairs? On the other hand, Shiat and Farley looked at Ming Shi and the others as if they were looking at fools. Originally, with Cohen's help, Ming Shi and the others had some hope of escaping from their hands. But now, the only person who could save them had been pushed away by them. What was the difference between this and suicide? Are they stupid? They actually didn't let Captain Cohen help. Who do they think they are? They're just a few students who haven't graduated yet. Do they really think they have the strength of a great magician or a great swordsman? Isn't that right? I've never seen such a fool. Say, do you guys think they're so strong that they can fight against two great magicians? Is that why they didn't let Captain Cohen help? Maybe. Young people really don't know much. They only learned magic and Do Chi for a few years and they already dare to challenge great magicians. They really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Maybe they really have the strength. Strength my ass. What kind of strength can a kid in his teens or 20s have? In short, no one was optimistic about Ming Shi and the others. Some felt that Ming Shi and the others thought too highly of themselves and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Others felt that they were blinded by the title of geniuses and thought that they were invincible. Those who could enter the Notre Dame du Starlight were all geniuses. That was the place where geniuses gathered. Many of the Notre Dame du Starlight students thought highly of themselves and thought that Ming Shi and the others were students who had been blinded by the halo of geniuses. Were Ming Shi and the others really as useless as those people thought? The answer was, of course, impossible. We still have things to do. If you want to fight, please hurry. Skycliffe's cold face didn't reveal any emotions, but the impatience in his words was quite obvious. Although his tone was normal, one could still feel his impatience. Uncles, are you two looking for a fight? Fengwu blinked, then turned to ask a juror. Fengwu's evaluation of these two was that they were two annoying uncles. Why did they have to talk so much when they wanted to fight? If they could save the time they had to talk, the fight would have been over long ago. The two elders who had no idea that they were being criticized by Fengwu for wasting time were currently mocking Ming Shi and the others in their hearts for not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. Right? Anyway, they aren't here to eat with us. A juror looked at the two elders with disdain, deeply despising their characters. They spoke as if the inheritance belonged to their two families. How shameless. Brat, you're courting death. The two elders were, after all, the elders of two large families. When had they ever been ridiculed by the younger generation? They were instantly enraged. Each of them shot a magic ball at a juror and Fengwu. The two elders used at least 70% of their strength this time. They were deliberately trying to injure the two of them. Chapter 170. Unfortunately, the two of them had underestimated the strength of Ming Shi's party. Before the two balls of light could reach Fengwu and Ajur, they were destroyed by a snow-white long sword. This was a magic attack made by two 7th-level great magicians, yet it was destroyed by a single sword strike. This was impossible. This wasn't a dream. Not to mention how inconceivable Shiat and Farley were, even the surrounding adventurers felt as if they were dreaming. If you want to do it, then do it quickly. Don't talk too much nonsense. Skycliffe's long sword had already been unsheathed. The blade was wrapped with an ice-cold sword intent. This was the ice sword intent, the first type of sword intent that Skycliffe had comprehended. There were many swordsmen present, but there weren't many who could reach the level of sword intent. Sword intent was a very mysterious thing. Only a great swordsman who had comprehended sword intent had the opportunity to become a great swordsman. Although there were many great swordsmen, there were very few who could surpass the great swordsman realm and reach the level of great swordsman. Many people were trapped in the realm of great swordsmen for their entire life, unable to become a great swordsman even at the end of their lives. The reason for this was because they couldn't comprehend sword intent. Those who could reach the realm of great swordsmen knew that the earlier one comprehended sword intent, the higher the potential of that person. Only then would they have the hope of reaching a higher realm in the future. Skycliff was only in his 20s. He was still a youth at first glance. But now, he had comprehended sword intent that many great swordsmen couldn't comprehend. This was simply a super genius. Good boy, you are really talented. To be able to comprehend sword intent at such a young age, you are much stronger than most great swordsmen. Are you interested in becoming a guest elder of our Italy family? As long as you agree, I won't care about your disrespect towards me. As a great magician, Farley naturally had good eyesight. He was able to see Skycliff's terrifying talent in swordsmanship at a glance. He was afraid that Skycliff would become a great swordsman or great swordsman in the future. He might even reach the height of a magic swordsman. Reaching a higher realm was not something they dared to think about. If they could befriend such a promising young man, it would be beneficial to their Idori family. For various reasons, Farley really wanted to let go of Skycliff, who had spoken rudely to them just now. Our Lienya clan also welcomes you to join us. As long as you are willing to become a guest elder of our Lienya clan, we are willing to provide you with cultivation resources, and all of our grievances will be written off. What do you think? Shiat was also very sincere. As an elder of the family, the first thing he would think about was the family's interests. Unless they were certain that they couldn't rope in this genius, the two of them wouldn't immediately make a move on Skycliff. His luck is too good. I thought that this young man was dead for sure. That's right. To be invited by two great families to become a guest elder is a great honor. Moreover, you won't have to worry about cultivation resources in the future. If it were me, I would immediately agree. Come on, look at how old you are. Even if you were to throw yourself at them, they wouldn't take a liking to you. What are you talking about? You guys talk too much nonsense. Just when everyone thought that Skycliff would be overjoyed and agree, he directly said something that made them want to stab him to death. Was this a rejection? Is he really refusing? Aren't you just courting death? It was such a good thing, why aren't you willing? The spectators couldn't understand. Meanwhile, Shiat and Farley were so angry that their faces turned red. This was the first time they had encountered someone who didn't give them any face. The anger in their hearts almost burned their hair. Both of them wanted to kill Skycliff. Although they wanted to rope in a genius, it was better to destroy him if they couldn't. After today's incident, this genius definitely wouldn't have a good impression of their two great families. Since that was the case, they might as well let him die here. It was better than waiting for him to grow and become an enemy of their two great families. Courting death, Shiat shouted with a gloomy expression. The element of darkness surged, and several balls of darkness flew towards Skycliff. Skycliff calmly drew a sword in the air. Following which, Skycliff activated a sword technique. The long sword in his hand moved as fast as lightning towards the balls of light. This time, Shiat used his full strength. In order to prevent a genius who was hostile to the Lienya family from growing, he had to kill him. Senior Skycliff, will you be all right? Rika worriedly pulled on Zicheng's sleeve, her heart in turmoil. If she had known that she would encounter such a situation, she wouldn't have come to the two-realm battlefield. Little Cheng. Similarly, Eve was also worried. Zicheng's other sleeve was tightly gripped by Eve. She also had a nervous expression on her face. It's fine. Zicheng calmly smiled at the two of them. Unlike these two, Zicheng had countless trump cards in his hands. Naturally, he wasn't worried about his life. Because of Zicheng's calmness, the two of them relaxed a little. Ajur originally wanted to comfort Fengwu, but Fengwu didn't give him the chance. Her eyes were bright as she stared at Skycliff's attack. Skycliff's sword techniques were clean and neat, but his killing power was extremely high. Although he wasn't a great swordsman yet, he was still able to fight against a great magician without showing any signs of defeat. This kind of strength was indeed worthy of being the valedictorian of the 4th grade. Curse of Darkness. Seeing that the balls of darkness weren't of much use, Shiat waved his staff again. This time, his chanting time was even shorter. When he chanted the 4 words, the surrounding light disappeared. Everyone seemed to have sunk into darkness. No one could see each other's existence. Not good. Looks like this old man really wants to take that youth's life. Cohen cursed. Captain, you know that the 2 of them won't let such a dangerous person live. Miriam didn't want his captain to interfere too much. It wouldn't be good for the Inferno mercenary group. Although they weren't afraid of the strength of the 2 families, it wasn't a good thing to make enemies for no reason. Cohen could only sigh deeply. He felt pity for Skycliff. The youth's temperament was indeed too impulsive. High-level dark magic, Curse of Darkness. When the magic was activated, it would envelop the surrounding area in darkness. As for how wide the area was, it would depend on the person's realm. With Shiat's realm as a great magician, the power of such a high-level magic was naturally very strong. The moment the magic was activated, even those who were watching the show were enveloped in darkness. It's so dark. Feng Wu frowned. She wasn't used to the sudden darkness. Xiao Wu, don't be afraid. I'm here. Ajur thought that she was afraid. Didn't she see Rika and Eve screaming in fear? I'm not afraid. Feng Wu wasn't a coward. Ajur thought that Feng Wu was afraid. Chapter 171. Ajur couldn't see Feng Wu's expression, but he could guess that the Feng Wu girl was unhappy. Yes, 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 our Feng Wu is the bravest. Why would she be afraid of a little darkness? Ajur tried to pacify Feng Wu, and sure enough, Feng Wu immediately became happy. If it wasn't for the fact that it was so dark right now, one could see that the girl's eyes were shining brightly. In this darkness, no one would be able to discover anyone's location except for the person who cast this spell. Before the darkness faded away, he was the master of this place, so he could know the location of anyone in this darkness. Another dark spell was cast from a dark corner. A cold smile hung on his face, as if he could already see the death of that cold youth. So what if he was a genius? A dead genius, no matter how talented he was, what could he do? Even the upper echelons of the Yi family knew that Shiat had a hobby of killing geniuses. He had killed plenty of commoner geniuses as well as nobles. Of course, those he killed were the geniuses of smaller nobles. Shiat wouldn't provoke the geniuses of the bigger families. As an elder of the family, he knew the principle of picking the soft persimmon to bully. This was also the reason why Shiat wasn't punished for killing so many geniuses over the years. As long as he didn't cause trouble for the Lieh family, they wouldn't stop him from using this small nickname. Now that another genius had appeared in front of him, Shiat licked his lips in excitement, as if he could already imagine the scene of that white-haired genius lying in a pool of blood. Shiat had already finished preparing his spell, and as long as he cast it, he believed that Skycliff and his companions wouldn't be able to survive the attack of his advanced dark spell. Brat, remember this is the consequence of offending the Lieh family. Shiat was about to cast his spell in the direction of Skycliff and Feng Wu. I told you, you talk too much nonsense. A cold voice slowly approached, accompanied by the footsteps of the Grim Reaper. Shiat wanted to dodge, but it was too late. He didn't even have time to feel any pain before he lost all signs of life and fell to the ground with a thud. Due to Shiat's death, the dark spell was dispelled and everyone regained their sight. It was as if the darkness had never existed. The faint moonlight shone on everyone's body. The darkness of the night was originally a blessing for dark mages. Because his magic was cast at night, it was even more powerful. If it was cast during the day, it could make people lose their light for 30 seconds. But if it was cast at night, it could make people lose their light for a minute and a half. A full minute and a half, in which many things could happen, No one would have thought that Shiat, a hunter, would actually be killed by the prey he had set his sights on. Everyone who had just recovered from the darkness looked at Tianya in disbelief. This youth's strength was clearly not at the level of a great swordsman, but he was able to kill Shiat, who had the strength of a great magician. This was simply unbelievable. I'm dreaming, right? Or is it because it's too dark and my eyes are playing tricks on me? Cohen rubbed his eyes in a daze. Shiat was the Lienya family's dark element genius. A dark magician was a powerful magician. Even Cohen himself wasn't confident that he could kill Shiat. But now, a student who was obviously weaker than them had done it. Anyone who saw this scene would find it unreal. I wish I was dreaming, but it's not. Milline smiled bitterly. How is this possible? This can't be real. Impossible. How did Shiat die? How did he die? Farley roared in his heart. He was the one who couldn't remain calm. Farley was very clear about Shiat's strength. The lethality of Shiat's dark magic was astonishing. Moreover, it also had a curse effect. If one was injured by dark magic and couldn't find a light magician to remove the curse, then they would be tortured by the curse until they wished they were dead. Shiat was a great magician. In Farley's heart, his strength was very strong. Farley knew that he wouldn't have the upper hand if he fought Shiat. But now, Shiat was dead. It was no wonder Farley found it hard to believe. Are you going to fight as well? Skycliffe's expression was still indifferent. He didn't seem to be excited about killing a great magician. It was as if it was a normal thing. Seeing Skycliffe so calm, Farley weighed the pros and cons in his heart. Skycliffe was able to kill Shiat despite his dark magics. This was proof of Skycliffe's strength. If he really fought with Skycliffe, even if he won, it would be a very dangerous victory. Kid, I'll let you go this time. The next time we meet, this old man won't let you go so easily. After throwing down these harsh words, Farley hurriedly left the place with the few surviving juniors and guards. Fortunately, no one stopped them from leaving. Skycliffe also didn't have the leisure to chase after Farley. They're leaving just like that? Let's go. This time, the Idori and Lienya families have lost a lot of face. Why don't you think Farley and that kid fought? What else could it be? He's afraid of death. Shiat is already dead. Farley's strength is at most on par with Shiat's. He might not even be as strong as Shiat. How could he not run at this time? The surrounding onlookers discussed among themselves. Even the survivors of the Lienya family had disappeared without a trace. They probably went back to report the news of Shiat's death. The people of the Idori family had already run away. Cohen originally wanted to go up and talk to Skycliffe, but Ming-Shi had already led everyone away. He didn't care about what the people behind him were saying. Drew followed beside Fengwu and saw a shocking reversal of events. He originally thought that Fengwu and the others wouldn't be able to keep their lives. As a friend, Drew couldn't bring himself to run for his life. He was already prepared to die with Fengwu and the others. He didn't expect that they wouldn't die in the end. Not only did they not die, even that elder Shiat was killed by Skycliffe. Drew looked at Skycliffe with eyes full of worship. So powerful, so powerful. He was actually able to kill a great magician of a higher rank. Furthermore, it was a dark magician who was publicly acknowledged as the most difficult to deal with. He was simply too strong. After leaving the tomb of the god of sin, the two-realm battlefield seemed to have returned to its original state. The undead army that had disappeared without a trace appeared again. Feng Wu and the others killed quite a number of undead along the way, and only then did they find a relatively safe place to set up camp and rest. Chapter 172. Everyone had gained a lot from entering the tomb of the god of sin. Of course, the one who gained the most was definitely Irene. However, after Irene came out of the tomb of the god of sin, she disappeared without a trace. No one knew where she was hiding. That Irene is simply too despicable. She snatched the inheritance and ran away, but she almost caused us to be killed. If it wasn't for Senior Skycliff, I really don't know what would have happened to all of us in the end. Eve ate the soup and barbecued meat prepared by Zicheng. The thought of Irene filled her stomach with anger. You can't blame Irene. She didn't know it would turn out like this, did she? Zicheng smiled gently. Although she had a feeling that the inheritance should have belonged to her, she had the favorability system in her hands. She could have any inheritance she wanted. Even if it was taken away, she didn't care that much. However, she still felt uncomfortable that something that belonged to her had been snatched away. Of course, Zicheng couldn't say these feelings in front of so many people. She didn't want others to think that she was a narrow-minded person. But she clearly knew that you were the one who discovered the inheritance first. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have known the location of the tomb of the god of sin, and we wouldn't have been able to enter the tomb of the god of sin first. That was originally an opportunity that belonged to you, but now it was snatched away by Irene. She is simply ungrateful. Ming Shi and the others quietly ate the food in their bowls without making a sound. Fengwu had always been oblivious to what was going on outside when she ate, so naturally, she couldn't pay attention to what Eve was saying. She was happily eating a roasted demon lamb leg. Elena had obtained this demon lamb leg in the tomb of the god of sin. At that time, she had killed a few demon lambs and put away the corpses, preparing to roast them early to eat. Now that they were out, they naturally had their eyes on the demon mutton. Speaking of which, the demon mutton was roasted with Zicheng's special spices. It was so delicious that it made people want to swallow their tongues. Eve spoke vehemently, but unfortunately, other than Zicheng, no one paid any attention to her. Everyone knew that she had plotted against Fengwu in the Tomb of the Gods. Ming Shi and the others were very disgusted with her character. If it weren't for Zicheng pleading for her, they wouldn't have bothered with Eve at all. Zicheng persuaded a few more times, then changed the topic without leaving a trace. He could clearly feel that Elena didn't like Eve. Even Senior Ming Shi and the others looked at Eve strangely, always with a hint of indifference. It was clearly not like this in the past. Zicheng only needed to think for a moment to know that the problem was probably in the first stage. He didn't know what happened in the first stage that caused Senior Elena and the others to change their attitudes like this. Everyone had their own thoughts on this night. Just like that, everyone passed the last night in the two-realm battlefield peacefully. When Ming Shi and the others returned to Notre Dame du Starlight, a few days had already passed. Fortunately, Ming Shi and the others covered for them this time. Pei Qing wasn't caught and returned to Central City safely. However, the bounty on Pei Qing had always been at the top. Now, the bounty had already reached 500,000 gold coins. So much money! Ajur and the others drooled when they saw it. If it weren't for Pei Qing being so difficult to deal with and being so cunning, they would have definitely handed him over. This way, they would be able to earn 500,000 gold coins. Although this idea was beautiful, it was a pity that Pei Qing wasn't willing to cooperate at all. Everyone could only look at the bounty and sigh. Other than giving Drew the antidote spirit fruit, Fengwu could be said to have gained the most from this trip. Because those magical beasts all liked her very much, Fengwu had collected many good things in her spatial ring. Speaking of Drew, ever since they left the two-realm battlefield, Fengwu gave him an antidote spirit fruit that Drew wanted. Drew took the spirit fruit and thanked her repeatedly. He was so touched that his eyes turned red. Although it was just a fruit, if it was sold at the auction house, it could fetch a lot of money. After thanking Fengwu again and saying that he would definitely go to Central City to visit her if he had the chance, Drew reluctantly bid farewell to everyone and went back to save his father. Ming Shi and the others were seniors. When they returned to Central City, they separated from Fengwu and the others. No one knew what they were going to do. As for Fengwu and Ajur, they went to visit Tian Yu's family first and had a big meal at Tian Yu's house before returning to school to cancel their leave. Pei Qing and the others seemed to have used the money they earned to buy a small house in the city. Now, they finally became snails with a shell and didn't have to stay in hotels all the time. The adventure ended just like that. Fengwu and Ajur returned to school and checked the rankings. Because the two of them had just earned a large sum of money, they had now rushed into the top 10. The first place was still occupied by Zicheng, and the second place just happened to be Irene. By the way, Eve's ranking wasn't low either. In fact, it was slightly higher than Fengwu and Ajur. Although Rika's ranking wasn't in the top 10, it was still within the top 50. If there were no accidents, this money-making mission would probably end with this ranking. Even if there were changes in the rankings in the future, it wouldn't change too much. After returning to school, Fengwu's life began to revolve around school again. Occasionally, she would go out to accept a mission, but she wouldn't go too far away. Before she knew it, the semester was almost over. Looking back at her life for the past half of the semester, it seemed that she had been very busy. Other than attending classes, she was busy making money. She didn't even have much time to go out and have fun. Xiao Wu, did you hear? The ranking for this mission is out. You and Ajur are tied for 5th place. I heard that the school will give you a reward. When you get the reward, you have to take it out and let me see. The seniors of the previous batches kept their rewards a secret and didn't want to reveal anything. I'm guessing it must be something good. Mo Gue pulled a stool over to sit beside Fengwu. He couldn't wait to share the latest news with Fengwu. Okay, I'll show it to you. Fengwu nodded and agreed readily. Speaking of which, you and Ajur are really amazing. Our swordsman department has 3 people in it, but you're the only one in our class. The other 2 are 3rd and 4th place, but they're not from our class. Their mage department also has 3 people in the top 5. This time, because you and Ajur are tied for 5th place, there are 6 people in the top 5. Our 2 departments just happen to have 3 people in each department, so there's no need to fight. It's just that the mage department is very proud now. Although our swordsman department and their mage department each have 5 spots in the top 10, their overall ranking is higher than ours. The other departments didn't earn much because they learned relatively weak things in the beginning. Not many of them made it into the top 50. But this was normal. For example, although the alchemy department made more money in the later stages, that was only after they became junior alchemists. Chapter 173. As long as a pharmacist student grows up, they won't have to worry about money. However, their luck isn't too good. This money-making mission will only be more beneficial to them after a year or 2. Mo Gue Tao continued to talk about the news he had heard. Mo Gue Tao had been paying attention to these rumors in the school. By the way, Xiao Wu, I don't know what happened to Eve, who was originally ranked 3rd, but she was given a major demerit by the school on the grounds that she violated the school rules. If she gets 3 major demerits, she will have to drop out of school. I really don't understand what kind of mistake a freshman like her could make to be given a major demerit. I also heard that this time, Zicheng voluntarily gave up the reward for 1st place in exchange for a major demerit for Eve. If it weren't for Zicheng, she would have been expelled. When Mo Gue heard the news, he was shocked. The school rarely gave students major demerits. Moreover, it wasn't just a demerit at the beginning, but a direct expulsion. What exactly did Eve do to make the school decide to expel her? It was written that she violated the school rules, but which rule did she violate? Teacher, why didn't you explain clearly? Making us guess like this is too much. I was just talking about this. Do any of you have insider information? Our school hasn't had a major demerit for decades. They didn't even mention the reason, just saying that she violated the school rules. If they don't explain clearly, it makes my heart itch. Isn't that so? I'm dying of curiosity too. I strongly urge the school to disclose the reason for the major demerit so that we can learn from it and avoid committing the same mistake again. Come on, to be given a major demerit and expelled, how big of a mistake would it be? Maybe it's colluding with the demons or something like that. Colluding with the demons? You're really good at guessing. If that's the case, it wouldn't just be expulsion, but execution. That's true. It was obvious that although Eve's demerit had just happened, it had already spread throughout the school. There was no entertainment in the school, and the students' lives were very dull and boring. It was not easy for 1 or 2 pieces of gossip to happen, so of course, there would be a lot of people fighting to spread the news. Fengwu listened quietly. Regarding Eve's demerit, Fengwu really didn't know what was going on. She completely didn't expect that this matter had a lot to do with her. Now, Eve's hatred for her was probably as deep as the sea. Fengwu didn't know this. She never cared about Eve, so of course, she wouldn't care if Eve hated her. Speaking of the reason for Eve's demerit, it had to start with what happened in the tomb of the god of sin. In order to prevent her stupidity from being exposed, Eve actually laid a hand on Fengwu and framed her. And all of this was seen by the senior Elena. Elena was a straightforward person to begin with. She didn't have the slightest good impression of someone like Eve who plotted against a classmate. Although she didn't say anything in the tomb of the god of sin, she still reported this matter to the school when she returned. Eve was summoned to the office for a talk, and under the means of the teachers, she was seen through before she even had a chance to lie. Originally, with her major evil act of framing a classmate, she should have been kicked out of school. However, she was lucky to have such a good sister like Zicheng. Zicheng was originally the first student in this new student's mission. The first student would receive certain privileges from the school, and Zicheng directly used this privilege to exchange for the opportunity to let Eve stay in school. Elena and several other teachers tried to persuade Zicheng, but Zicheng insisted on protecting Eve no matter what. This made Elena and several other teachers who cared about Zicheng sigh endlessly. Although Elena admired Zicheng's attitude of sacrificing her own interests for a friend, Elena didn't have the slightest good impression of the person who made her sacrifice. At the same time, she naturally felt that Zicheng wasn't worth it. She also deeply sighed for her poor judgment. Because of Zicheng's intervention, Eve was of course able to stay in school in the end. However, a major demerit couldn't be forced. Fortunately, Zicheng also knew her limits. She knew where the teacher's bottom line was. She also wouldn't go overboard. If she still pleaded for leniency at this time, not only would she not gain the teacher's favor, she would also attract the impression that she didn't know when to stop. Zicheng came to plead for leniency for Eve, not only because she wanted to save a good friend or something like that. What she wanted the most was to use this opportunity to increase the teacher's favorability. Fortunately, her plan was carried out very smoothly. The teachers appreciated her behavior of not giving up on her friend, and their favorability rose by a lot. Their dislike of Eve also rose in a straight line. Zicheng's act of caring for her friend and sacrificing her own interests also increased her favorability in the class by quite a lot. There were also sympathy points. Everyone sympathized with her for being dragged down by that stupid bad woman, Eve. Seeing the increasing favorability, Zicheng was overjoyed in her heart. However, she still had a bashful smile on her face. As for Eve, she had long been touched by Zicheng. It probably wouldn't be a problem for her to die for Zicheng. Irene sat in the distance and watched as Zicheng used Eve to show off. She was very disdainful in her heart. As expected of the female lead, she really didn't let go of any opportunity to increase her favorability. Irene had returned not long after Fengwu and the others had returned to school. That day, Erin snatched the inheritance, and used her trump card that she had never revealed to anyone before, successfully escaping from the divine tomb. She left the two-realm battlefield without stopping, and found a place to hide. Only after she had completely fused with the inheritance did she return to the academy. By now, her strength had already increased by quite a bit. That acquired god just so happened to be a powerful wood elemental sorcerer god. She also had wood elemental magic talent, so she successfully integrated the inheritance. After Irene received the sorcerer god's inheritance, her combat strength and healing ability had increased by several levels. As for that Eve, after she returned, she spread the rumor that she had snatched Zicheng's inheritance. Many students believed Eve's words and treated her coldly. Fortunately, Eve didn't gloat for too long. Now, retribution had come. KSK. She thought that she was a good person. She was just someone who framed her classmates. If she wanted to harm someone, she should have done it more covertly. She did it in front of Elena. If she wasn't a fool, what was she? No wonder this Eve was played around by Zicheng. She really had a pig's brain. With such a pig's teammate, it would be a joke if she didn't drag them down. Not to mention Irene's reaction to this matter, Fengwu's class discussed Eve's demerit for a long time. In the end, they didn't come to any conclusion. The school did a good job of keeping this matter a secret. They didn't leak anything at all. This made the students who wanted to hear the gossip secretly beat their chests and stomp their feet. It had only been a few days since Eve was given a major demerit, and another major event had happened in the school. The results of the freshman money-making mission had finally been announced. As Zi Cheng had given up on his reward, the school had only given the top 10 students a reward. Chapter 174. The top 5 originally received a top-quality sensory stone, and the first place could even make a request to the school. In the past, the first place had always kept this request a secret, not easily making a request to the school. What a joke! How could this request be casually made? Of course, it would be saved up for later use. Only Zi Cheng would be stupid enough to use it to save Eve. Zi Cheng, on the other hand, didn't regret it. She had raised quite a bit of favorability in the past few days, and quite a few people's favorability had already risen to 90. If she worked a little harder, 100 wouldn't be far away. The 6th to 10th place each received an advanced sensory stone, and the 11th to 50th place received an intermediate sensory stone. After 50th place, there was nothing. As for what the sensory stone was, the school didn't specifically explain. They only said that when the next semester started, most of them would need it. This time's mission was easy for some people, but it was very difficult for most people. Most of the students didn't reach the goal they set. They had to earn the money they promised before the end of the next semester, or else they would have to repeat a year in the next semester to continue this mission. Actually, this mission wouldn't take more than a year for people with ability. For example, Zi Cheng, Irene, and the others were the best examples. This was also the reason why the results were only released halfway through the semester. According to the school's rules, only the top 50 students had been selected before the results could be announced. As for those students who didn't manage to complete their goals in one semester, they would have to use the second half of the semester to continue this task. Of course, if there was someone in the second half of the year who could successfully make a comeback and squeeze into the top 50, then they would also receive the reward they deserved. However, the Notre Dame du Starlight had been open for so many years, and it wasn't that there weren't any who could make a comeback. In the past few thousand years, there were only 1 or 2 who could make a comeback. Needless to say, the chances of making a comeback and entering the top 50 were very slim. After the simple award ceremony, the first years returned to their classrooms. Because this was only a first-year mission, only the first years were present. Students from other years wouldn't come. After returning to the classroom, Fengwu received all the items that the teacher had taken away. Speaking of which, at the beginning of the money-making mission, the teacher had ordered all the students' spatial equipment and crystal cards to be confiscated. At that time, many students in the class were unwilling. Fengwu also didn't want to let the ring leave her, but because it was the school's request, she had no choice but to comply. Later on, because he had to go on a mission, and Little Bun could no longer be brought away with him using the spatial ring, Ajur went to find his teacher. In the end, through some unknown method, his teacher agreed to only take away the items in the spatial ring and not the spatial equipment. Later, many students found out that they could do this. Of course, they went to their teachers immediately and used the same method to get back their spatial equipment. He also promised his teacher that he would never sell his spatial equipment to raise money to complete the mission. Of course, there were also some students who didn't ask the teachers for their spatial equipment because they didn't want the items in their spatial equipment to explode. When retrieving her spatial equipment, Fengwu counted the items in the spatial ring in front of the teachers. At that time, when those rare items were sorted out, even the teachers were shocked. They really couldn't tell that Fengwu was actually a nouveau riche. These magic cores and all kinds of magic materials, many of them were high-quality goods that couldn't be bought outside. There were even some rare ores that were said to only be produced in a few dangerous places. There were many nouveau riches in the school, but the only one who could be so rich that the teachers didn't dare to believe it was Fengwu. Although the other students' family conditions were very good, they were still only students. Of course, the truly valuable things in their family couldn't be placed on a child. Those teachers didn't know that Fengwu actually didn't know how valuable the things in the ring were. Ever since she got the ring from little Yu, Fengwu didn't carefully look at what was inside. She just used it to store more things. Although she didn't look carefully, Fengwu still knew that there weren't many things in the ring. There was only a small pile. Don't expect a girl who just transmigrated to know the value of these local items. The Fengwu girl who only liked to eat usually didn't even bother to look at these things. Don't talk about understanding what was inside the ring and knowing how much it was worth. Xiao Wu, you're really too lucky. You actually got a grade sensing stone. This thing is very valuable. If you want a grade sensing stone, you have to use a lot of credits to exchange for it. Even the seniors in the upper grades can't afford it. Black Gui immediately moved to Fengwu's side and said with a face full of envy. Mo Gui's luck this time wasn't bad. He got a good result in the 30th place and obtained a medium grade sensing stone. Although it wasn't high grade or top quality, he still felt quite satisfied. Fengwu took out a white, crystal-like stone from the ring. This was the mission's ultimate reward, a top-grade sensing stone. Don't look down on this stone just because it was the size of a baby's fist. At Notre Dame du Starlight, one had to spend an astronomical amount of credits to exchange for it from a teacher. This is it. As expected of a top-grade one. The color is so clear, and you can't even see the slightest bit of impurity. It's really beautiful. Mo Gui exclaimed in surprise. His expression was like that of a 10,000-year-old bachelor who suddenly saw a peerless beauty. No matter how one looked at it, it was wretched. The surrounding students all took a few steps back, not wanting to pay attention to this embarrassing fellow. You're drooling. Fengwu looked at the excited Mo Gui and sternly reminded him. Ah. He quickly wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and smiled shyly at Fengwu. Xiao Wu, can I touch you? Touch stones? What kind of hobby was that? Although Fengwu didn't understand, she still nodded generously. At the same time, she handed the top-grade sensing stone to Mo Gui. Mo Gui received it as if he was on a pilgrimage, his eyes filled with a hint of fanaticism. What exactly is that stone? Look at Mo Gui. It's like he's seen a peerless beauty, a female student standing not far from Mo Gui asked curiously as she pointed at Mo Gui's embarrassing appearance. Actually, for it to be used as a reward for the top 5, they could already guess that it must be very precious. However, as for how precious it was, not many people knew about it. At the very least, most of the people in the class did not know. That's right. He didn't even explain. Look at him. I'm afraid that the top-grade sensing stone is something incredible. Chapter 175. That's indeed a good thing. That stone is the key to another world, Peter said with a mysterious smile. The key to another world? What do you mean? Everyone's curiosity was piqued, including Fengwu. Fengwu didn't know what the stone was for. After hearing Peida's words, her curiosity was piqued as well. She turned her little head and stared at Peida. Peida smiled gently and elegantly. Do you still remember the place where the last test was when we took the entrance examination? It was a magical world with all kinds of opportunities and dangers. It was a world created by a genius thousands of years ago, Longze Gamer. Legend has it that when Longze Gamer ascended to the celestial realm, he left this world called the Mirage in the human world. Notre Dame du Starlight is in charge of it. In the Mirage, you can practice all kinds of combat skills and temper your mind power. You can even find all kinds of gifts that His Excellency Longze Gamer left in the Mirage. Fengwu's exquisite sensing stone is the key to the Mirage. Only those who have the sensing stone can sense the entrance to the Mirage and enter it. These were things that could only be known after entering the Notre Dame du Starlight. If it weren't for Peida's family background, he wouldn't have known these things. You're saying that the small world we entered last time is the Mirage? Wow, that place is huge. His Excellency Longze Gamer is really amazing to be able to create such a world. To be able to create a world was something only a god could do. This world was completed before His Excellency Longza Gamma became a god. It was really amazing. You're wrong about one thing. That place is indeed the mirage, but that's not the entirety of the mirage. Legend has it that the real mirage is extremely huge. Its size is comparable to our entire continent. The place we entered was merely an examination hall isolated by the teachers. The size of the mirage is negligible compared to the entire mirage. Wow, that's amazing. As expected of His Excellency Longza Gamma. He's so powerful. When will we be able to enter the mirage to take a look? The school gave the sensing stone to Fengwu. Does that mean that Fengwu can enter the virtual realm to cultivate? The students in the class began to discuss among themselves. Now that they knew what a sensory stone was, these students who had just entered Notre Dame du Starlight began to feel envious and jealous of Fengwu. That's right. Students who possess a perception stone can enter the mirage before others. However, the rest of you don't have to worry. As long as you complete this money-making mission, the school will give you a basic perception stone. However, the first 50 students will receive it first at the end of the first semester. Moreover, the perception stone they receive will be better than the others. Those ranked after the 50th could only be distributed at the end of the second semester. The basic perception stone could only allow one to stay in the mirage for 4 hours, the intermediate perception stone could last for 8 hours, and the advanced perception stone had no time limit. One could stay in the mirage for as long as they wished. However, the advanced perception stone cannot replenish the body's energy. After staying in the mirage for a certain amount of time, one would have to leave the mirage to eat or drink potions to replenish their energy. If one stayed in the mirage for too long, their body would not be able to take it. Over time, it would even cause damage to the body. However, the mirage has taken precautions against this. The mirage is able to sense the condition of a human's body. If one's constitution is too weak and their energy is insufficient to maintain the mirage, the overgod of the mirage will forcefully kick them out. Pei Erbei then explained the different types of perception stones so that the students could better understand them. Since the advanced perception stone is so powerful, what are the uses of the supreme grade perception stone? Silda asked curiously. Yeah, what's the use of the supreme grade perception stone? It should be much more powerful than the advanced perception stone. The students began to discuss among themselves, expressing their curiosity about the supreme grade perception stone. Fengwu perked up her ears and listened even more attentively. When she heard about the mirage, Fengwu thought of the old curator. If she could enter that world again, did that mean she would be able to see the old curator again? Fengwu really liked the old curator who took care of her. Originally, she thought that she would never see him again. Who would have thought that she would actually be able to see him again? Fengwu's eyes lit up, and the corners of her mouth curved upwards. Mo Gue hugged the supreme grade perception stone, drooling all over the floor. Finally, he had seen enough and reluctantly returned the perception stone to Fengwu. The supreme grade perception stone is the same as the advanced perception stone. It has no time limit and can stay in the mirage at all times. However, there is one thing that the advanced perception stone cannot compare to. The supreme grade perception stone can automatically replenish the energy needed by humans. Therefore, those who possess the supreme grade perception stone don't have to come down to eat like those who have the advanced perception stone. They can stay in the mirage at all times while their bodies remain in a dormant state. However, it's not good to stay in the mirage all the time. It's better to get up and move around a bit. I heard that there was once a person who used a supreme grade perception stone to stay in the mirage for a month. In the end, when he came back down, he couldn't even walk. He only regained control of his body after 7 days. This lesson tells us that even with the supreme grade perception stone, you can't stay in the mirage forever. Your body will rust if you don't move around. After Mo Gue returned the supreme grade perception stone to Fengwu, he casually took a bite. Peida didn't mind someone stealing his limelight. As expected, Peida's face didn't show any displeasure. Instead, he was curious as to which faction Mo Gue belonged to. The school didn't allow the seniors to reveal too much to the freshmen, so Mo Gue must have found out through other channels. Could he be a member of one of those big families? Although the Mirage was left to the Notre Dame du Starlight by Sir Longza Gamma, there was more than one place in the Mirage. There were several other places in the Mirage that were controlled by other families. These families would also use the Mirage to cultivate their children. Therefore, other than the people of the Notre Dame du Starlight, only the top forces and families on the continent would know about the existence of the Mirage. No need to guess. I'm not one of those people you think I am. My family is just an ordinary small noble. I heard about it from a friend of mine. My friend's family just happens to know some inside information. If it weren't for the fact that we're all classmates at the Notre Dame du Starlight, I wouldn't dare to talk about it outside. Chapter 176. Mo Gue shrugged. He didn't need to ask to know what Peida was thinking. Mo Gue wasn't lying. He knew that it was a good friend who told him. He had promised his friend that he wouldn't take the initiative to spread the news about the Perception Stone and the Mirage unless he entered the Notre Dame du Starlight and obtained a Perception Stone among the freshmen. I see. Peida nodded and didn't ask any more questions. After knowing what the Perception Stone was and what it could be used for, the students who hadn't completed their missions exploded with enthusiasm. They wanted to complete their missions as soon as possible so that they could enter the Mirage and gain experience. Fengwu's top-grade Perception Stone was, of course, so terrible that it attracted a lot of attention. Previously, no one knew what it was, so there weren't many people who wanted to see it. However, after knowing how precious the Perception Stone was, the number of onlookers immediately increased. Fortunately, Fengwu wasn't a stingy girl. She generously took out the top-grade Perception Stone for the students to see. For the entire day, almost all the students in the class were discussing the Perception Stone. They were even more fascinated by the Mirage. At this moment, Irene was looking at the top-grade Perception Stone in her hand in a classroom of the Sorcerer Department. Her eyes couldn't hide the excitement in them. The Mirage was a magical place. Everything in the Mirage was a bit like the holographic online game world in novels. However, the Mirage didn't need to be connected to the internet, gaming pods, gaming helmets, and the like. One could enter it just by relying on the Perception Stone. She knew that the Mirage hid a huge secret. In the novel, Zicheng had gained the favor of a certain important person in the Mirage. He had learned many lost magic spells and gradually became stronger. Later on, she had used her favorability system to bring that important person to the real world. Then, she had caused a reign of terror on the human continent. Oh right. Zicheng's male lead was known in the Mirage. He seemed to be a direct descendant of a certain big family. His family background was extraordinary. He was powerful, handsome, and spoiled the female lead. He was simply the perfect male lead. Tisk, what's so great about it? It's just a rock. Is there a need to stare at it for so long? Eve came out again to show off her presence. Ever since Irene obtained the inheritance of the Tomb of the Gods, Eve would find trouble with her whenever she had the chance. She was like a housefly, which was simply annoying. Irene turned her head and pretended not to see him. She didn't want to pay attention to this kind of supporting role that was destined to be cannon fodder, Irene thought proudly. Eve still wanted to say something to hurt Irene, but unfortunately, she was dragged away by Zicheng. Eve could only bite her lip and hope that she could kill Irene with her eyes. Irene, pretend you didn't see anything. In the first semester, the Swordsman Department spent most of their time in theory classes. The Swordsman Department clearly emphasized actual combat, but the teachers did not arrange any actual combat classes. This made the students very disappointed. They could only hope that in the next semester, they would arrange some new classes. Always attending theory classes was the most boring. After the results of the money-making mission were announced, the semester ended just like that. There wasn't even a ceremony for the end of the semester. At the end of the semester, most of the students chose to go home. Ajur and Mo Gue naturally had to return to their families. Even Fengwu's 3 girls in the same dormitory went home one by one. Only Fengwu was left in the dormitory. Fengwu packed up her things and didn't stay in the dormitory. Qianyue's family had already invited her to stay in their house. Fengwu never knew how to be polite, so she nodded and agreed. For Fengwu, there was nothing better than living in Qianyue's house. There was someone to take care of little Bun. For Fengwu, the saddest thing was that she couldn't eat in the student cafeteria during the holidays. Fengwu said that the food in the cafeteria was okay and cheap. Unfortunately, she couldn't eat it now. Fortunately, Little White had good culinary skills. Soon, Fengwu forgot about the student cafeteria under Little White's feeding. Due to the holidays, Qianyue's family originally worked in the student cafeteria of Notre Dame du Starlight. Now that the students had left, the cafeteria naturally closed. Right now, Qianyue's family had nothing to do at home. Similarly, Qianyue's children were also on holiday. Of course, Tank was included. Fengwu naturally received a warm welcome when she arrived at Qianyue's house. Little Bun was directly carried away by Tianyue. According to Tianyue, she was someone who couldn't stay idle and had nothing to do. Before school started, Little Bun would be taken care of by her. Fengwu girl didn't have any objections to this. Xiao Wu, is the two-realm battlefield fun? I heard that there are many powerful fellows there. Did you meet them? Qianyue's son, Lon Tian, asked curiously with his large eyes. I did. How powerful is that fellow? Is he as powerful as the demon you met last time? Lowly Lan Yu also came to join in the fun. This lass was asking about the demon that Fengwu and the others met when they went to Frost City. Yes, this one is even more powerful. Fengwu thought for a while and said, Wow, then how did you guys defeat him? Did the Star Hall's emissary come to help again? Tank was most curious about the emissary of the Star Hall. At such a young age, this little fellow had already decided to work in the Star Hall in the future. Fengwu shook her head. No, the Star Hall's emissary. It was Xiaochun who defeated him. Who is Xiaochun? The three little ones asked. Xiaochun is Xiaochun, my friend. Fengwu blinked innocently. The three little ones sighed and gave up asking who Xiaochun was. Xiao Wu, tell us what happened in the two-realm battlefield this time. Can you tell us from the beginning? Lan Yu said coquettishly. Okay. Fengwu didn't refuse. She opened her mouth and told them everything that happened along the way. Of course, she only told them what happened after they entered the two-realm battlefield. As for what happened in the small town before, the children didn't ask, and with Fengwu's personality, she naturally wouldn't take the initiative to tell them. 10 minutes later, the three little ones couldn't help but admit that it was a mistake to let Fengwu tell them a story. Was there anyone who didn't add some personal emotions or inflection when telling a story? Important things should be asked 3 times. When Fengwu told a story, she told them everything that happened, as well as what they said along the way and what they encountered. She didn't even raise her pitch by half a note. The three little ones regretted it. If they had known, they'd rather wait for Big Brother Ajur to come back than look for Xiao Wu to tell them stories. They wanted to listen to their adventures, but in the end, there wasn't even the slightest bit of excitement. Fengwu didn't know how the three little ones despised her for not having the talent to tell stories. She was honestly telling them everything that happened after they entered the two-realm battlefield. She didn't look like she was telling a story, but more like she was giving a report. Tianyu, who was hugging little Bun and sitting at the side, almost laughed out loud when she saw this scene. This was the first time she saw these three little ones being defeated. Why did she feel that it was so interesting? Chapter 177. In the distant eastern ancient country, the Feng family was in a heated argument. Or rather, it should be said that the Feng family's patriarch, Feng Wuliu, was roaring at his son, the current patriarch of the Feng family, Feng Tianxing. What do you think this is? She dared to propose to a male classmate not long after school started, and she even dared to take the child to school to raise. She's really grown up. Our Feng family's face has been completely lost because of her. Feng Wuliu became louder and more agitated as he spoke. This is all your fault. How did you teach your daughter? How did you teach her to be like this? I know that child's talent isn't good, and I didn't expect her to become a talent. As long as she was obedient and didn't go out to ruin our Feng family's reputation, I would be thankful. In the end, look at what she did. She got pregnant at such a young age, and she doesn't even know who the father of the child is. Sending her to the countryside to raise the child was to protect her reputation and also to let her get some training to see if she could become smarter. Who knew that she would actually leave just like that, and not even send a message back? Did she even treat us as a family? Tell me, what kind of child did you give birth to? She's just an ingrate. But father, this can't be entirely blamed on Xiao Wu. The village Xiao Wu lived in was so bad that it was ransacked by bandits. It's already not easy for her to survive. Madame Lan, who was also the wife of the Feng family's patriarch, Lan Xiao Dai, wiped her tears in grievance. The more she thought about her daughter, the more her heart ached. Her daughter didn't inherit her talent in magic, nor did she inherit the Feng family's talent as a swordsman. Although no one in the Feng family cared whether she had talent or not, outsiders didn't think so. Every time Xiao Wu was hurt by the rumors outside, Madame Lan's heart ached. Later, his daughter mysteriously got pregnant. Xiao Wu couldn't even tell who the father of the child was. The old man used the excuse that Xiao Wu was ruining the family's reputation and sent Xiao Wu to a small village. Although the old man said that he would expel Xiao Wu from the Feng family, he didn't do so in the end. She had originally planned to wait for Xiao Wu to finish her confinement and bring her back 2 years later. She hadn't expected such a tragic incident to happen. She had thought that Xiao Wu wouldn't survive, so she hid in her room and cried for more than a month. It wasn't easy for her to hear from the old man that not only was her Xiao Wu alive, but she had also entered the Notre Dame du Starlight. At the time, she had been so happy. She had thought that after a few months, the old man would put in a few good words for Xiao Wu on account of Xiao Wu's survival. She hadn't expected such a thing to happen again. Her poor Xiao Wu, when would she be able to come home again? The more Madame Lan thought about her daughter, the sadder she felt. Her handkerchief was soaked from crying. Feng Juntian held Madame Lan's weak shoulders and comforted her silently. Father, is there some misunderstanding? Xiao Wu only likes. Feng Tianqing didn't finish his sentence. Everyone in the Feng family knew that Feng Wu had a crush on Feng Juntian's good friend, Qiu Ruobai. This matter wasn't a secret in the Feng family. No matter who she likes, the news of her public proposal has already spread throughout the Notre Dame du Starlight. This was personally said by the old vice principal. As long as Feng Wuliu lost face in front of his old rival, he couldn't wait to stuff that disappointing granddaughter of his into her mother's womb and remake her. It was precisely because the vice principal said it that it was even more untrustworthy. Who didn't know that the vice principal and his old man didn't like each other? Moreover, the vice principal had a personality that wished for the world to be in chaos. It was fine to only listen to half of what the vice principal said. But with Xiao Wu's personality, for her to confess and propose in front of so many students, this is too. Madame Lan said softly. It was inconceivable, wasn't it? Although Feng Wu's personality was somewhat extreme and cynical, she was still a very shy girl. If she really dared to confess in front of everyone, why would she have a crush on the son of the Qiu family and not dare to confess for more than 10 years? In the end, when she finally confessed her feelings, she only dared to write a love letter and didn't even dare to open her mouth. Regarding this point, everyone in the Feng family could think of it. However, Feng Wuliu was now so angry that he had lost his rationality. Or rather, he couldn't be bothered to think so much. After being reminded, Feng Wuliu also seemed to have thought of this point and didn't continue this topic. After scolding his son, daughter-in-law, and grandson, he mercifully let everyone leave. Madame Lan followed beside Feng Tianqing and hesitated to ask her husband to bring her daughter back. Xiao Wu had never suffered since she was young. Now that she was studying alone in another city and it was already the holidays, she had nowhere to go. What should she do? Xiao Dai, go back to your room first. Tian, come with me to the study. Feng Tianqing didn't turn back to look at his wife and directly walked towards the study after saying this. Madame Lon sighed. It looked like she could only wait for another opportunity. Tian, you should persuade your father. Your younger sister is alone outside and doesn't even have a place to stay. She has never suffered since she was young and has experienced so many things. I believe that Xiao Wu has also learned her lesson and will definitely change in the future. You should persuade your father to let your younger sister come back. Mother's heart feels terrible. As Madame Lon spoke, she started crying again. The handkerchief that hadn't dried yet became wet again. Feng Juntian nodded stiffly and turned around to follow his father into the study. Feng Tianqing looked at his handsome and tall son and then thought about his daughter. He wondered more than once if there was a problem with his way of educating his daughter. Otherwise, how could his daughter grow up to be so crooked? He had clearly used the same method to educate his child and was more lenient with Xiao Wu, who was a girl. He didn't expect that child to grow up to be so crooked. She didn't even have the bearing of a legitimate daughter of the Feng family. Father, you called me over for something? Seeing that his father didn't speak for a long time and only stared at him in a daze, Feng Juntian had no choice but to ask after enduring for a few minutes. Contact your younger sister and see how she is doing. Does she lack anything? Does she have enough money? 20 gold coins a month is a little too little. You can give her more depending on the situation. You are her elder brother, so you should take good care of your younger sister. Remember to contact your younger sister personally later and don't let anyone else do it for you. Feng Tianqing was really not used to saying such words of concern. The men of the Feng family were not good at expressing themselves. It was already not easy for them to say such words of concern. Yes, Juntian understands. Feng Juntian looked at his father's back. When he spoke, his father deliberately turned his back to him. He suspected that his father was shy. If he didn't see wrongly, his father's ears seemed to have turned red. Since you know, you can leave. Remember to get things done as soon as possible. Feng Tianqing waved his hand and sent his son out without even looking back. Feng Juntian walked back to his room alone. His thoughts were a little messy. Thinking of his younger sister, Feng Wu, Feng Juntian frowned. His younger sister wasn't close to him since they were young. Among his friends, other than a few, most didn't know that he had a younger sister, Feng Wu. Chapter 178. Feng Wu's personality was a bit extreme. She had never been close to her brother. Every time they met, the scene would be cold and cheerless. When others were showing off their little sister, he could only remain silent. He and Xiao Wu were like strangers living in the same house. He didn't know what Xiao Wu liked or what she liked to eat. His understanding of Xiao Wu was even inferior to that of Feng Ting, who was born of a concubine. In the eyes of his friends, it seemed that Feng Ting was the young miss of the Feng family. His only sister was Feng Wu. Because she didn't like to appear in front of others, her presence was too weak. Most people had already forgotten about her. Even he, her brother, was used to ignoring her. Could it be that he was partly responsible for her becoming like that in the end? It seemed like he was really a failure as her brother. Taking out the communication crystal, Feng Juntian picked it up and put it down a few times. In the end, he finally made up his mind to use the communication crystal to contact Feng Wu. Feng Wu didn't have much to do recently. After listening to Feng Wu's story, the children ran out to play on their own. Feng Wu could only stay at home and read. As for what book she was reading, it was the popular romance novel, The Story of Me and the Sword God, that Tian Yu had enthusiastically recommended. Just from the name, it was obvious that the male lead of this book was definitely a sword god. This sword god's name was Skycliff. That's right, it was that Skycliff from the Notre Dame du Starlight Ming Shi team. Although Skycliff didn't talk much, he was a very famous young talent on the continent. At such a young age, he was favored by many sword masters. They all said that he was the man with the most hope of becoming a sword god. Skycliff's reputation among the younger generation was resounding. He was also favored by the older generation, so he naturally became one of the most popular young talents on the continent. He was also the dream lover of many girls. In the eyes of those girls, his indifference was called having character. His lack of reaction to women was called self-respect. Only having the way of the sword in his heart was also called having ambition. In short, in the eyes of those girls, Skycliffe was a young man who looked cold on the outside but was passionate on the inside. He was ambitious and had a strong background. In the eyes of those girls, he was a 100% diamond-level tortoise. The main plot of this book revolves around Skycliffe and a noble man. You didn't read wrong, it's a man, not a woman. This book was a romantic novel. The young noble in the book was extremely talented, but unfortunately, he was envied by the direct descendants of the family. In the end, the young noble left in anger and went on an adventure on the continent by himself. Skycliffe, on the other hand, was severely injured during a training and was saved by that young man. From then on, the two of them started an ambiguous relationship. Ming Shi, on the other hand, was a great man who loved Skycliffe and sacrificed himself for the sake of Skycliffe and that young man. This book had climax after climax, and the plot was compact. Overall, it was a relatively good book. It was no wonder that it was so popular. Fengwu finished the book in the shortest time possible after reading for 4 hours straight. She looked a lot more serious, and her face showed that she was thinking about something important. Tianyu was curious. She walked to Fengwu's side and sat down. Xiao Wu, what's wrong with you? Are you bored? Why don't we go out for a walk? I don't feel like going. Fengwu shook her head. She was very busy now, and she was thinking about a very important problem. What's wrong with you? Did you encounter something unhappy? Tell me, sister will give you some advice. Tianyu was not that old, and because she didn't want to be called old, she asked Fengwu to call her sister. Sister Tianyu, Ming Shi likes men. What should I do? Fengwu looked at Tianyu, bit her lip, and asked carefully. Fengwu wanted Ming Shi to be Xiao Wu's father, but now she suddenly found that Xiao Ye's future father might run away with a man. This made Xiao Wu feel a little overwhelmed. Could it be that she was thinking about Ming Shi, the person she was thinking about? Tianyu had a headache. Did this girl think that novels were reality? It had to be said that Tianyu was right. This was Fengwu's first time reading a romance novel. Previously, when she read books in the library, she also read literature books that were helpful for her studies. This was the first time she came into contact with a romance novel like this, so this girl didn't know that these novels were just the product of some people's imagination. She thought that something really happened between Ming Shi and Skycliffe. Xiao Wu, this is... Just as she was about to say that this was a novel and that there was no need to treat it seriously, Fengwu suddenly took out a communication crystal from her spatial ring. This communication crystal was originally with the original owner. After Fengwu obtained her spatial ring, she had always kept it in her spatial ring and rarely took it out. Just as she was talking to Tianyu, she felt a strange movement in her spatial ring. Fengwu instinctively took out the stone that caused the movement and stared at it curiously. The stone emitted a gentle white light, and then the image of a handsome black-haired man appeared on the communication crystal. The image wasn't big, but it was enough to see the man's figure and appearance. Xiao Wu, long time no see. How have you been? Feng Juntian used his usual cold voice to greet Fengwu. Only he knew how nervous he was. Who are you? Fengwu's face was expressionless as she looked at Feng Juntian in the image. She didn't even call him by his name now. In the past, Xiao Wu would always refuse to call him Big Brother, and would always call him by his name. Even after being corrected by her parents many times, she still refused to call him Big Brother. But now, she didn't even call him Big Brother, and directly asked who he was. Could it be that Xiao Wu didn't want to acknowledge him anymore? Feng Juntian couldn't tell what he was feeling, only that his heart was filled with panic. I'm Big Brother, Feng Juntian said with some difficulty. Big Brother? You're Big Brother. The first thing that came to Feng Wu's mind was those little girls who had older brothers at the foot of Mount Yuehua. Those girls' older brothers always helped those girls to make trouble for her. Now that she had an older brother, would this older brother also play with her and help her no matter what happened, just like those children's older brothers? Hello big brother, I'm Fengwu. Xiao Wu was a little happy. She also had a big brother, so she was very happy. What she wanted to do the most now was to bring her big brother to those little girls who bullied her in the past, and then loudly tell those children that she also had a big brother. Did this mean that they were getting to know each other again? Did this mean that Xiao Wu wanted to let go of the past? If that was the case, then they should get to know each other again. Most importantly, Xiao Wu called him big brother so well that it made his heart melt. Hello Xiao Wu, I'm your big brother, Feng Juntian. Feng Juntian realized that he was very nervous. He had never been so nervous in his life. Chapter 179. After the self-introductions, the siblings fell into silence. They looked at each other, but neither of them spoke. Feng Juntian wondered if he should find something to talk about. It wasn't easy for his little sister to call him big brother, so he wanted to talk to her more. But no matter how he thought about it, he didn't know what to say. Although he had two little sisters at home, they always found things to talk about on their own. They had never asked him to take the initiative to do so. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation, so he was a little confused. Xiao Wu, have a chat with your brother. You haven't seen each other in such a long time, so you should have a lot to talk about. Tianyu sat at the side and couldn't bear to watch any longer. He was Xiao Wu's brother indeed. The siblings were both silent and had the same paralyzed expression. What do you want to talk about? Fengwu turned her head, her eyes wide open. Tianyu sighed inwardly with a headache and said, You can tell your brother about what happened to you at school and what you want to ask. Fengwu understood and nodded. She turned to look seriously at the figure in the video. I want to help Little Bun find a father. Why won't he agree? Little Bun is clearly very cute and fun to play with. The girl's voice was filled with grievance. She couldn't understand why Ming Shi wouldn't agree to her proposal. Before returning to school, Fengwu had actually proposed to Ming Shi again. The scene at the time was like this. On the bustling street, a young man and a young woman stood quietly by the side. The young man's alluring face and the young woman's beautiful little face became a beautiful scenery on the street. Beside the young man and woman stood several handsome men and beautiful women of different styles. It was truly a group with off-the-charts good looks. Instantly, countless people turned their heads to look at them from time to time. The people standing there were Ming Shi and Fengwu's group. After returning to Central City, Zicheng had used some excuse to leave with Eve and Rika. Fengwu and the others were also saying goodbye to Ming Shi's group. Seniors, we'll meet again at school. Ajur waved at the seniors. I hope we'll meet again in the future, seniors of Notre Dame du Starlight. This was Pei Qing and the other two. We'll definitely meet again. Elena nodded at the three with a smile. Return to school early. You're still freshmen. It's not good to be absent for too long. Auguros. Ajur led the other members of the expert team to say goodbye to the seniors of Ming Shi team. Fengwu, on the other hand, kept staring at Ming Shi without blinking. Ming Shi was forced to stare at the girl for a full 10 minutes. In the end, he couldn't take it anymore. He coughed softly and said, Xiao Wu, do you have something to tell me? Do you have a cold? Fengwu finally spoke. As soon as she spoke, everyone else stopped talking. They were waiting to watch the show between the two of them. No, it's just that my throat is a little dry. I'll be fine after drinking some water. Ming Shi could only find an excuse to explain. Here's some water. Fengwu took out a water bottle from her space ring. Her eyes were bright as she handed the water bottle to Ming Shi. Her little face was full of anticipation. She looked like a cute puppy waiting for its owner to stroke its fur. Ming Shi was shocked by his own imagination. He really couldn't tell Fengwu that he didn't want to drink water. He couldn't say no, so he took the water bottle. He wanted to take a sip and then hand it back. He didn't expect the girl in front of him to keep staring at him. The anticipation in her eyes was so obvious that anyone who wasn't blind could understand what she wanted to express. Was he trying to make him drink all the water? Should he drink it or drink it or drink it? Under such a gaze, it would be like committing a crime if he didn't finish the water. Ming-Shi had no choice but to finish the water bottle in one go. When he finished the water bottle, he was about to say thank you. He didn't expect another bottle to be handed to him. The corner of Ming-Shi's mouth twitched. If he hadn't known this girl for a while and knew how honest she was, he would have thought that he was being pranked. Elena and the others didn't mind watching the show. They were all excited to see Ming-Shi suffer. To make Ming-Shi, who was always smiling, show such an expression, "Girl, you're really not an ordinary person. Our seniors have high hopes for you." Feng Wu's little face was full of anticipation. Her little expression was so cute that it made people unable to refuse. Also, with those big watery eyes, Ming-Shi suspected that if he dared to refuse, this girl would immediately cry in front of him. After taking the water bottle, Ming-Shi finished it again. When Feng Wu took out the third water bottle, Ming-Shi resisted the danger of making Feng Wu cry and decisively refused to be stuffed to death by the water. "I've had enough. I'm not thirsty anymore. You can keep it and drink slowly." Not sure if it was an illusion, Elena and the others clearly felt that Ming-Shi's gentle and tolerant smile was slightly distorted. "I have a lot. This is for you." Feng Wu insisted on handing the water bottle to Ming-Shi until Ming-Shi helplessly took it. In order to make Ming-Shi believe that she had a lot of water to drink, this girl took out more than 10 bottles of water from her spatial ring. Everyone was silent. "Girl, you're not planning to go to the desert to train, are you? Why did you bring so much water with you? Xiao Wu, what did you want to say to me just now?" Ming-Shi did not want to talk about water anymore, so he could only change the topic. Feng Wu did not know that Ming-Shi wanted to change the topic. She obediently put away the water bottle, then stared at Ming-Shi for a full minute before saying, "Please marry me." Ming-Shi thought of many possibilities, but he did not expect Feng Wu to stare at him for so long just to say this. Not only did Ming-Shi not expect this, even Elena, Ajur, and the others did not expect this. They all thought that Feng Wu had long forgotten about the matter of proposing to Ming-Shi. They did not expect this girl to still not give up. There were so many people here, which one of them was not smart? They all felt that the way Feng Wu looked at Ming-Shi was not like how one would look at a lover. Her eyes were very clean and pure, but there was no love in them. Instead, there was a deep attachment. It was as if she saw another person through Ming-Shi. Others might not be able to understand this feeling. At most, they could tell that Feng Wu did not love Ming-Shi, but Ming-Shi could feel that Feng Wu's eyes were always looking at another person's figure through him. He thought of the love letter Feng Wu wrote to him. It said that he looked like her master. At the time, he laughed it off, but he somewhat understood who Feng Wu saw through him. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.